Hello and welcome back to the Full Tank with Phil podcast, the first ever podcast about gambling on NASCAR. And it is 2023. It has finally arrived. We are not talking about a race just yet, almost there. But on tonight's episode, we are going to be getting into one of my favorite topics and got the best guest for it. We're talking silly season and the recap of everything that was to get you prepped for the 2023 season. So I will describe that in just a minute, but wanted to take a second to talk about the show and the schedule for this off season. So obviously it's January. We're still over a month away from the 500. Still have a little bit to go, but we're going to put this episode out there about silly season to get you prepped. And then I'll have one more preseason episode, at least I'm planning on one more, to talk about season win totals. That was a huge topic last year, a very good one, and something that I really enjoyed doing. So we'll put one of those out probably maybe early February is the game plan. I'm waiting for more books to come out with some more odds to get in there and have a better conversation about that. So you can expect another show before the 500, that's for sure. You can find me in other places like the NASCAR betting preview show. We'll be having some preseason shows there as well on Twitter Spaces. So give it a look there. Something else that I wanted to mention, doing something new for this season. You might be watching this on YouTube. So been told by some friends of the program, Seth from In Between Media is definitely one of those people who's been in my ear. You need to get on YouTube, need to have something out there on a different platform. So if you're listening to this, as always, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, great. We're good to have you back again for another year. But you also have the option to give this a look on YouTube. And my game plan, and, interested to hear some feedback on this, but my game plan would be this season, anytime I have a guest on, I'd like to have a video element to it. And that's what I would post on the Full Tank with Phil podcast YouTube channel. So that's the thought. I would record the typical part of the podcast where I'm just riffing on the race that was and my picks for the upcoming race. And then when I get to the guest, that'll be obviously part of the audio podcast, but you can find that visually on YouTube as well. So that's my game plan for the 2023 season and how to do things a little bit differently, new things. With a new year comes new ideas. So we're going to give that a shot and hopefully it works out well here. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please bear with me. I got some growing pains to use this technology here today, but otherwise, let's get to it. So we're talking silly season, and I want to bring on someone who is probably, I've met this person a couple of years ago now, and since then I have learned that he has the love of the silly season chaos just as much as me. And we're going to bring on Chris from the Flag Hunting Pod. Chris, welcome. Thank you for being my first guest of the new year. How are things going with you in the Flag Hunting Pod, and how's your off season of NASCAR going?
Yeah, so obviously, first off, thanks for having me on your debut on YouTube. This is huge. This is awesome. So big things in store for your podcast, which is awesome to see. We have to adapt, right? We have to adapt and survive in this world.
That's right.
But yeah, so things are going good. Off season, I really just kind of took advantage of taking a break. It's nice to, when we're in the role that we are in during the season, we're constantly on Twitter, running numbers, trying to gather all of the news, put content out there, like I know you're recording 2 nights a week. I'm recording 2 nights a week sometimes. So taking a month to kind of breathe has been nice. But then also, I think it's good to go back, and I'm someone who likes to run the model. So I go back and I kind of looked at what I used last year and compared like, hey, what did I run before the race and how did that turn out when the race was all said and done? Like, is this actually working? And then obviously just trying to learn how to better that model and how to better the process. I think that's something you need to do as a capper, is just be willing to change and learn from your betting past. And like Chris Worm would say, you learn something from every race, you take it and you utilize it, right? So yeah, that's pretty much been my off season. We didn't have much of a an off season for golf necessarily. Ian had about 2 weeks off, and then we got right back to it. And we had our first absolute heartbreak of the season last week already. First term of the year, we had Colin Morikawa on our card, up 6 strokes on Sunday and blows it. So if you've ever been to our Twitter page, you've seen Tyler Reddick and Colin Morikawa are like our cover page guys. Those are our guys. And so anytime any of them lose, it hurts to the heart. So we're mourning right now, but we're good.
Well, I'm sorry about that, and that's a horrible way to kick off the new year. We need to bounce back quickly. I want to give the Flag Hunting Pod a shout out because you had a buffet of people on to do a draft in a really fun episode. We got to give that a shout out because that was a lot of fun. We drafted our own teams, and it was we were able to take a guy lifetime contract, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. And we put together a team of 4 drivers, and we did that with a lot of different people. That was really fun. So I appreciate having me on for that.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. I honestly kind of forgot about that. And that was a lot of fun. But yeah, that was part of the off season. Yeah, that was a blast. And it'll be fun to look at that like for years to come and say like, man, we were really bad at this, or hey, maybe we're really good at it. Who knows?
I know it's going to be fun to see who's trying to get you to delete that episode in about 3 years. Yeah. So I have to say, I'm right there with you as far as like, taking a break. Cause in addition to all that, running the numbers, worrying about recording this show, whatever other show, I know you and I are the same, like we got to work, like we have our real jobs. So that's what's nice is just kind of like relax in that sense too. But it is fun now that the calendar turned. It is fun to kind of look ahead. News starting to come out. We've got some odds here and there sprinkling down in certain books. So starting to get that itch a little bit. That's for sure. I'd be lying if I didn't, run a couple numbers myself, look at some stats this week myself. So we're getting there. We are getting there, and hopefully you guys can wipe off that Morikawa breakout or collapse before NASCAR season, so you're not looking to wipe it clean with a Daytona pick. But let's talk about why we're here, Chris. Silly season. It is no longer a season where in the past, I think like when we were kind of growing up, it was really like towards the end of the season, and then like the holiday season was when all these changes went down. I can't pinpoint when it really shifted, but now it's basically all year. And so because it's all year, I thought it would be a good show, a good way to educate people, because if you're a gambler or you're just a fan of NASCAR, I think it would be decent to be able to listen to this episode, and we're going to tell you every major change that has happened in all 3 series going into the 2023 series. So you are prepped, you're ready to go. You're not watching Phoenix and saying, whoa, who's driving that car? Wait, what? Like, who is that? The goal is we've got you covered. And we're going to start this concept by talking about our top 5 favorite moves of the silly season. So like I said, it's not the off season. Some of these moves happened months and months and months ago. And so we'll call those out and just kind of remind you. And this is all meant to get your feet wet, because as a NASCAR fan, it's good to know who's driving what car. But as a gambler, hopefully we're calling some of these changes out and you're starting to think of the gambling changes that comes with it. The way your mind starts to work is, okay, how can I make money off of this change? What does that mean for me in the gambling space coming up in the 2023 season and immediate future? So we're going to start by our top 5 favorite moves. And it's not a draft per se. If I've got something on my list and Chris calls it out, I'll tell you where I had it on my list. And then after that, we're going to go through the J-Ski site, because if you're not familiar with the J-Ski site and you're a fan of silly season, I don't know what you're looking at, because J-Ski is the best source for any of this type of stuff. When things happen, they have it immediately. So what we're going to do is just slowly go through, starting with the truck series, go through, and any changes we're going to call out. And we'll talk about it, and I have a way to do that, which we'll share when we get to that area. And then at the end, we'll start talking about next year, because silly season for 2024 has already started. And I'm so happy we didn't record this podcast last week, Chris, because we've got some big news this week. So we'll talk about our thoughts for 2024 and any big swings we have there. So how does that sound? Any thoughts, questions, concerns on your end, Chris? Anything you want to add?
No, honestly, I think the only thing I was going to add to this was you talking about how it's not necessarily like a season anymore. Do you remember we actually recorded a slow season episode in like July or August?
We
Like,
did. Yes, we did. You're right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
because there was so much change that we needed to just get it out there.
Yeah. I mean, that just shows like there really isn't a season anymore. It's all year long, and I mean, how many times as soon as the news breaks, I feel like one of us is texting each other. That's just how crazy we are about this news. We're craving for any new movement. So yeah, obviously here we are, and hopefully everyone enjoys getting to hear all the new stuff and maybe agreeing or disagreeing with what we see as the most like influential or interesting moves in the NASCAR's top 3 series.
And so I want to clarify too, we're talking about all 3 series, trucks, Xfinity, Cup, but we are also talking about any type of change. So this could be a driver change, could be a crew chief change. If you hit me with one of those, I'd be shocked. But manufacturer change, that was a big one, big storyline in various areas this year. So really anything. And when we say our top 5, biggest changes or favorite, this is also subjective. It could be something that I like because I like the situation that the driver's in, or maybe I like the decision that the team made to put themselves in a different spot. Really anything. We're going to explain ourselves as to why we like each move and what we're going into the new season with. So just wanted to clarify that. So as we're doing that here, if anyone is watching this on YouTube, I'm going to give a visual to follow along. It's not the greatest. I'm not a graphic designer. I said that to Chris, but in any case, here we go. So I'm going to leave it to you, Chris. If you want to start off, you want to go from 5 to 1 or 1 to 5? I know you said you didn't really rank them, so I'm going to let you choose. How do you want to go? Your favorite pick first?
Yeah, I'm gonna go my favorite just because the ones I do have numbered, I do have like my 1 through 3 numbered, and I have an idea of what my 4 and 5 would be just for the sake of saying how I think I would rank them. But yeah, I think I'd rather start at the top if you're okay with that.
I'm fine with it. I think I can predict it, but how about well, now you just tell me what it is, and we'll riff on it.
You probably know it. It's Reddick to 2311 or 23XI to the 45 car to take over for Kurt Busch. So obviously you got a lot of things to unpack here, right? So Tyler Reddick, in the midst of his breakout year with RCR, if it wasn't for blown tires, we might be talking about Tyler Reddick winning 4 or 5 races last year. And leave it to Denny Hamlin to go out and snag him when, at his potential, before his boom, before even a lot of the bigger teams even had a chance to make an offer. I think this is interesting. Obviously, he's changing manufacturers. He's going over to the Toyota camp. He was 1 year away from really just being able to pick wherever he wanted, and probably was going to have an offer on the table from any team. But yet he chose essentially a lateral move, right? Which is kind of interesting. And then what's the other angle I wanted to take here? I guess so. Really, what I'm getting at here is now knowing what we know now, right? There are potentially 2 big seats opening up at 2 big teams next year, and you can argue maybe even 3. But he's betting on himself to go to Denny Hamlin's team. He sees 2311 as being potentially the next Trackhouse, an analytics-based team that's going to make that next step. And I don't know how I want to approach this, but I know that you and Rory, you guys had a little beef with Reddick because you didn't like the way he handled it, right? So here's my angle. Here's my angle on that, right? Because I've been kind of waiting to say this. I love it for Reddick, and I love the way he announced it. I loved everything about it. And you're probably like, why? That's so disrespectful to RCR. But how many times in sports do we see the owners take advantage of these athletes? they say like, no, we want to sign you for work. You know, like people always talk about when they go to negotiation periods, it's terrible for their mental health because you're just being torn down. The teams are telling you, no, we can't give you this money because you're injury prone or you're not worth it. You don't have the money behind you. So let it be what it is. RCR wasn't willing to give him more than one more year, and we don't know why. But Reddick said, "Screw you. I know I'm better than a 1 year contract. I know that I have the potential to go somewhere else." So he put his big boy pants on, and he's going to go out here and improve it. So that's how I feel, and I can see you disagree, but I just in mainstream sports, I'm not a fan of owners in any capacity, to be completely honest with you, because they screw players a lot. So I'm just choosing to take the driver's side here and bet on the potential.
Good point. I have a rebuttal.
Okay.
And this is not on my list. And the other thing, the thing that we talked about, Chris and I, before we started recording, was each move has threads attached to it that we could potentially pull and go down. And my top move is connected to this. So I'll call it out now, and then I'll talk about Reddick, and then we'll get back to it. But my favorite situation going into 2023, the silly season change, is Kyle Busch to the 8 car, which is replacing Reddick. So I want to start by saying I became a fan of Reddick just like you. And I know you never really know who these guys are, but like through social media, he seems like just an awesome dude. He's got a young family, just great guy. It seems like does things for the sponsors. Even after he announced this change, he was still, all about it. I have no problem with him trying to get his. Um, I will say my rebuttal to the way that he handled it and like kind of screw the owners type of thing is like, yes, I agree with that in football, baseball, hockey, basketball, because you're just a blip on the radar. But in NASCAR, I think it's a little bit different because he's not just screwing over Richard Childress. Like those guys on that team, that pit crew and the extended team, it's about him. They're doing it. They get up in the morning to make Tyler Reddick's life better. And for him to kind of just screw those guys over, like imagine being the long hauler, driving that 8 car for a lame duck driver across the country the rest of the year. Like I might be, kind of hamming it up here with this, but I still think there's something to that. Like, man, fuck this guy. Like he really, screwed us over here. So that's where now from the business standpoint of it, I made this analogy back in August when we did our silly season show, and I'm going to make it again right now. I draw comparisons to my favorite driver, Casey Kane, when he did this to the 9 team and said that he was having a gap year to go to Hendrick. And so then for the rest of that season, and then the next season where he signed with Red Bull, he was just a lame duck driver, signed early and never panned out. Like Casey Kane had all the potential of the world. Then he's going to the best team in NASCAR at that time, Hendrick Motorsports, and could never really put it together. I think he finished 4th or 3rd in the points in like 2012 or something like that. That was the best he got. That's it. And so from a business standpoint, you said it, horizontal move. So from Reddick's standpoint, I still question it. Like, why not wait out another year, stick around with the 8 team, and then get yours, get the bag, and you get a kick-ass team, as opposed to, going to a central startup company. Like, so I understand that. Different strokes for different folks, because in my line of work, like, if somebody approached me from a startup, like that would be very intriguing. I am not in a position in my life to want to do something like that. And looking at him, I don't see that fitting, right? I think he's more fitted for the company that's got everything. You plug this dude in and you win a championship. But like I said, I've developed into a fan of Tyler Reddick. So I want to be wrong in that case. And I'm very interested in seeing how it plays out. So that's that. Before I get into the outcome and then the Kyle Busch move, anything back to what I'm saying there?
Yeah. So my rebuttal to your rebuttal is, and I wish I remember where I heard this. I want to say it was Bianchi, but I'm not 100% sure. um, which is on the Teardown for if anyone who hasn't listened to that, another great podcast. But whenever Tyler switched from it was JGR to JRM, right? Or was it the other way around in Xfinity? Do you remember?
Who was it?
Tyler Reddick. He switched. He won the championship with JGR and JR Motorsports. But which one did he win it at first?
I don't remember.
Okay, well, moot point, whatever. Whichever one he was at first, right? He left and went the next season to the other team, and then won a championship with the other team. And whoever was driving for the team that he was initially with was interviewed saying, like, what does it mean, for Tyler Reddick to be leaving your team? And the driver was quoted, the Xfinity driver was quoted at that time saying, like, this means everything because you guys don't know how much just Tyler Reddick as a person elevated our whole program. And so as much as you want to say he did it for the guys, like, Reddick was there supporting them, I feel like, just as hard. And maybe he didn't feel like he was getting that support from the top, So I think there's more to Reddick than we think. There's more to Reddick than just on the track. Reddick seems to be loved in all facets of the organization. And I just feel like he felt underappreciated at RCR. And he, I think it was more than just a check that Denny Hamlin convinced him to come over to 2311.
So are you saying that, like, when he breaks the news to his team, because my point was, like, he's letting the team down. He's letting the pit crews guys down in a weird way mid-season, leaving them hanging.
Right.
Your point is, like, they love and respect him so much that they're like, go ahead, man, go get yours. Like, and if maybe that is the case, and that is a point that doesn't matter. Like, my point doesn't matter there, but yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out.
Either way, we're both kind of saying the same thing, right? We're both saying he chose to bet on himself, so we need to expect big things. I really feel that.
And if he does not go out, I mean, the win totals right now that are up right now on him are a win and a half. So, and it's like the win totals that are available to us right now on January 12th are trash. The odds are like huge minus money. I just wish they would shift the number instead of the odds. It's like minus 160 to go above a win and a half. He's got to win 2 wins. But then you're saying, all right, well, 2311 is going to take that big of a jump, like where they're going to do that. And then Bubba Wallace still has to get his. Like, that's a big jump for that organization. And I expect more than 2 wins. For a change like this, I would expect, 3. Because of where he was last year. He was emerging as a road course man. He's a good driver, so we'll see. Horizontal move, you can't see a setback. You got to see an improvement.
That's also a really good point you just brought up too about the road courses, because he became kind of that like new road course guy, but Toyota was really, really bad at road courses last year. So
it goes to what I was saying about, like, he's going to a startup, and that's not, it doesn't seem conducive for his skill set right now, because he's not a, Kurt Busch, perfect person to go to a startup. He's established. He's a veteran. He can build things from scratch. He's not trying to start his career. He's trying to end his career. So that's, where my mind was there. But am I intrigued by this move? Yes. So that leads me to Kyle Busch, because then RCR got put in a spot. Okay, what are we going to do? And it was a little bit of a vindictive thing. They basically said, all right, well, we're going to go steal your guy. When Kyle Busch was trying to negotiate his contract with JGR and Toyota, and that didn't work out. And the Kyle Busch situation has a lot of different threads attached to it. So really the Reddick situation caused a lot. It was really the biggest thing to happen. A lot of different spider webs. Yeah. Ripple effect came from that. And that's how Kyle Busch ended up on the 8 team. And for Kyle Busch, I feel like this is a downgrade to go from the 18 JGR car to the 8 car. And so I think expectations kind of have to be lowered a little bit for Kyle Busch. Similar to what Brad Keselowski did last year to go to his own team, but I don't think it's as big of a drop. No. We saw what Tyler Reddick could do in this car. He won in this car, a car that wasn't really a winning race car for years. He made it one. So it can be done. This next gen vehicle helps with that. So expectations are, I think, have to be lower for Kyle Busch this season than they were last year as far as like his win totals. But I have it as the number one because I think Kyle Busch, as a complete restart, refresh, going to a new manufacturer, going to a new team. He's going in there with Austin Dillon. Dillon's not going anywhere, so like they know it, right? I think that's going to bring very good results, and I think that RCR camp is going to see the benefit more so than the 2311 camp is going to see. Benefit. That's just my pick. That's why I have Busch number one, because everyone talks about how he's a wheelman. Well, let's see it. He's in a little bit lesser equipment. Can he get it done in some way? I mean, what would you say his win total should be this season if you were to bet on it? Like 1.5 for Kyle, or do you think a win is satisfactory?
No, I think you need to give him the respect of the 1.5 personally, and I'm with you. Like where it does feel like it's like a refresh, basically. Let's take a breather on the career we've had. Obviously, it's been good, but I'm not done, and I want to prove that I'm still one of the top guys in this series. So I think I would love to see a 1.5 number for him, just because I do think he can get. Personally, I would project him at like 3 wins, honestly.
Yeah, and the books might have him at 2.5 just because he's Kyle Busch. But
Yeah,
I think realistically we have to take a step back and say, this 8 car was nothing until last year. Now all of a sudden we're going to say it's a 3-win car.
And how long has it been since we've seen the dominant 18? I mean, it's been at least 2 seasons, right?
True. Yeah, it has been a little while. So I think just this reset, it's just like an athlete, in a stick and ball sport, getting traded or signing in a new spot. It's just hey, try something new. And I think all that pressure is off, if you consider it pressure. His family situation is figured out now, like, the personal stuff with the babies and everything, that's all done. So I think Kyle is in a great, I'd have to imagine he's in a great headspace heading into this season. And I'm expecting to see him do well and bring a lot to that organization. So I would love to see a season win total matchup between RCR and 2311. They had those last year. They did have those last year, and I didn't jump on any of them. So I'm hoping we see some more this year. So that's that. Let me throw it back to you. What's your second pick?
So I did have that like as my number 2.
Okay. All right.
But what I will put as my number 2 now, or are you going to fill it in?
I could fill it in. I don't know why your font is smaller, by the way, but
that's what you think of my picks. Apparently, you just think that they're smaller than yours.
You're the away team, so yeah, that's what happens.
The home team advantage here.
Yeah. So who do you have after that?
So I'm actually going to go, and I think this is popular amongst a lot of us in this community, but AJ Allmendinger back to full time in Cup. I think this is huge. It's huge. Like I don't know how they convinced him to come back, because he had no interest to come back. Like he was saying multiple times, I'm happy in Xfinity. I'm happy, being here, winning races, and having the less stress of being here on Sunday. Like that he had no issues with that. He's loves competing for championships, and I think he still can in Cup Series, because we've got 6 road courses on the schedule, right? I think it's still 6. So he's going to be, I mean, we think, right? We think he's going to be a lock for playoffs. So, and that's huge for this Kaulig team. So, yeah, I think this is a slam dunk for Kaulig, and I think it's actually, I know we just said this, we've said this already. The trickle down here, obviously for Justin Haley too, I think could be massive.
Big time. I wrote it in on the board here as my second pick. You hit the nail on the head. AJ is something I feel like anyone who listens to the content that I put out, at least for the preseason stuff and early in the season, you're going to be sick and tired of me talking about AJ, because him, and we spoke in depth on your fun draft show about AJ. I mean, he is the quintessential guy that you want to start a program. And Colleague used him. Like I heard an interview with the guy, I guess it's Matt Colleague
Mhm.
is his name, with Daniel Trotta and Larry McReynolds talking about them getting started and the way it happened. And it was so grassroots, started with a few races with AJ. They, first they needed a driver. They kind of asked around. He was into it. They did some super speedways, then some road courses, and it was just build, build, build. And then AJ really took the role of like mentor with the other guys when they were doing like driver by committee. And when they were, having the ability to buy a charter, they said, yeah, we want AJ to be the guy. But he was like, I'm fine being in the Xfinity series. Like, let's give it to Justin and I'll be his
Mhm.
coach. And they had like a father son type vibe.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that is the exact type of team that I would want to invest in if I had that ability. Because it's not like Trackhouse, right? Trackhouse was born on third and thinks they hit a triple. These guys are like grassroots, like I said, building from scratch. And to see now they have two teams and AJ coming up, like you said, he didn't want it originally, but I think AJ could really make some noise. Every time he was racing in a race last year in the Cup Series, we were talking about
Mhm.
it. It was the super speedways and the road courses. If you can be good, those packages and your team could be good on those types of tracks. Absolutely, you should be in the playoffs. Like, and so he is someone who's flying below the radar right now. I took AJ Allmendinger to win the championship at plus 10,000. Just because why the hell not? Right? If you do the math, 6 road courses, 4 super speedways, plus Atlanta, that's a lot of races where he should very much be in the mix. If he wins 2 of those races, he's locked into the playoffs. And then you got Talladega, you got a road course in the playoffs, a road course which he has dominated in the Xfinity series. So he can find his way through, just like Chastain did last year. Chastain didn't light the world on fire last year. He just like pointed people to death. AJ has the ability to make some noise, and he's a super value guy. So, like I said, I'm going to be preaching this for a while now. That's why I love this change in silly season because it clearly says to me, Colleague, they're a family. They understand. They talked about it, and him and Justin Haley, like you said, it's only going to be bringing great things for Haley down the road too. Once AJ's Cup Series career comes to an end again. So, love the pick. I had it as my number 2, so you're all over it.
And I think it's also worth noting too how good Colleague looks down the stretch. Like Justin Haley and whoever was running the 16, it was AJ some weeks, it was Gregson some weeks, but they were like staples in the top 10, like coming down the stretch. So it'd be interesting to see if they can carry that over to 2023.
Totally agree. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. All right, so you've got Reddick to the 45, Kyle to the 8 car, and then AJ to the 16 as your top 3. Give me your 4th pick.
All right. I'm going to go to a different series this time. Um, this one's probably going to be a little debatable,
All
but
right.
I'm going
That's why
Haley
we're here.
Deegan. Haley Deegan to drive for ThorSport. And I know me and you were texting about this as soon as it happened. But I think this is it. This is it for Haley Deegan right here. If you're a Haley Deegan fan, this is the make or break moment for her career because she's going to a team with established veterans, a championship driver, a team that's a staple in the truck series. They chose to, kick Eckes to the curb to bring her in. And yeah, there's no excuses anymore. Like it felt like the amount of times that I listened to Door Bumper Clear last year and had to hear TJ Major say, like, oh, if we weren't running back in 15th place, we'd be a top 10 car, but we just keep getting caught in this crap back here in the back and it's never her fault. And okay, well, fine. Then show us. This is the year to show us. And trust me, I want her to be successful. I do. I really thought they were going to move her up to Xfinity this year, just willy-nilly, just because. And I was surprised that they didn't. And I don't know what that says about what Ford thinks about her because there's still, if I'm not mistaken, there's still an SS Greenlight Ford car open right now. I'm pretty sure there's still an open seat, and they chose not to fill it with her. So yeah, I think this is, it might not be, a top move, but I think it's a top 5 interesting move because yeah, I think this is make or break for her, and time will tell.
So I agree with exactly what you just said about how this isn't a top change in the silly season, but it's a top 5 interesting change. That's a great point because this is something that has my full attention. And this isn't something, all of these things, I'm going to go on a quick rant here. All of these things are not going to be solved by St. Patrick's Day, right? If you're the type of person who likes to binge TV shows because you like to get to the finale right away, this silly season conversation stuff is not for you. I'm the type of person who likes to wait week to week. I like to spread it out because I like to let it marinate. I like to let it, let these guys bring it to the table, over time. So the Deegan situation, if she goes out and she gets a win at Daytona, for example, everyone's going to be saying, oh, she's good to go. She's good to go. But then she could do terrible the rest of the year. And that would say that she's not ready, or the complete opposite. So, does terrible in the beginning and then really starts to come alive in the end. This is make or break for her. My number 4, I wrote it on the card here, is related to it. I wrote it on because it's connected very much. Thor Sport, which is now with Kyle Busch Motorsports out of the Toyota camp and really kind of in a rebuild situation, moving to Chevy. Thor Sport is the team. Like, they are the team of drivers who should be able to get it done. You got Crafton, you've got Ty Majeski, who is someone that I am just in love with this year as far as the gambling perspective goes, for a championship, for multiple wins. You've got Ben Rhodes, past champion a couple years ago. So this is a stacked team. And I don't know, I should have done a little bit more research, but they moved to Ford now, and that's a pretty big deal. Toyota's being left in the lurch right now in the truck series. That's just a side comment. I mean, that program, Kyle Busch Motorsports, really held the Toyota camp really high up in the truck series. And now, they are completely being left out in the rain. And Ford snagging Thor Sport, it's huge. So I don't know. Maybe you could tell me, Chris, like, do you think there's an element to wanting to snag Thor Sport so that Ford could find a spot for Deegan in the truck series? That was a really good ride. Like, do you think Deegan had any, like, her name being out there had anything to do with Ford signing Thor Sport, or do you think it all just kind of like came together naturally? Like, because you made the comment of Ford maybe not believing in Deegan enough to put her in the Xfinity series, but I think they definitely had they wanted to put her, they're seeing what we're seeing, right?
Yeah,
Ford's
yeah.
not dumb. They want to put her in a good ride to be able to say, okay, apples to apples, how is she? And is she worth, really throwing our money behind? So there's a part of me that's like, okay, they saw the running on the wall. They got in bed with Thor Sport because they wanted her in that 13 cars, what she's going to be driving, or truck rather. And I don't know. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I probably went a little too far, but they didn't believe in her, because I think you're right. I think that this had a major impact in them wanting to get her to Thor Sport is by moving them to Ford. So yeah, I think you're right. I think they probably do see her still as very developmental, and they didn't want to rush her to Xfinity. Um, so yeah, no, I think 100% Ford probably lowered Thor Sport and said, hey, if you guys switch to Ford, we can get Deegan in your car. Also, a little side note, I kind of hate the 13 number. I don't know how you feel about it, but like the theme that we got going at Thor Sport, we got 99, 88, 66, and then 13. Like, what? We
It
couldn't we
doesn't.
couldn't we couldn't find
It,
an 11, 22, 33, 44. Like
it doesn't fit the mold. That's
yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and Johnny Sauter ran the 13 for years, and he's still
yeah.
around. Like, I don't know what happened there. I thought he ran it last year. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, I agree. They had a brand going with the numbers, and they kind of let that slip. I don't know how they landed on 13, but that's a funny thought there. But it I'll give Deegan some credit in the sense that at Phoenix she ran that Xfinity race and she did pretty well. You can't, like I just talked about the whole like
Yeah.
got to give it time type of deal. Don't want to overreact, but she did well in the Xfinity Series. I expected to see her crash and burn at Phoenix, but she did not. She did really well for her. But the situation that we need to get into with Haley Deegan is we need to stop saying, "Oh, that was a great finish for her." Like it needs to be she's competing for top fives. In the truck series, in any sports book that I'm aware of, you can't bet top tens. And I want to be able to bet Haley Deegan. I would never, ever. She's never had a top five in her career because you're just throwing your money away for taking Haley Deegan top fives. So I would love to see her in matchups. I would love to see her in, top five bets and have a real shot to win because that's how I have fun. That's how I become a fan of certain drivers is making money off of them. And the fact that she hasn't even been in the conversation of Truck Series betting on the sports books, we're not the ones not talking about her. We're not even given a chance to talk about her as far as gambling is concerned. So I'd love to see this step. Thor Sports the right spot if you're trying to prove it. And so I'm excited to see it. And I'm a fan of Thor Sport. I'm a fan of all three of those other drivers.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to hope that she listens because I think from a distance, again, I've been critical of her saying she's always kind of like blaming others. I can't see those guys, especially Matt Crafton, really, sticking around and listening to that and not saying something back. So, like kind of taking her under their wing and just saying like, look, you're young. Let's figure this out together. We'll get you where you need to be. The interesting thing is Thor Sport and Ford. Ty Majeski, he's looking at that as a stepping stone too.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of competing amongst themselves to see like who's gonna really take the next step. So that'll be interesting because I think Ty is set up to have a lot more success this season. So that's that. I will. So I'm one behind you here. So you're four right now. We're Reddick to the 45, Kyle Busch to the 8, AJ to the 16, and Haley Deegan to the 13 truck. I have a couple repeats. Kyle to the 8 is my number 1. AJ to the 16 is my number 2. Thor Sport moving to Ford manufacturer is my 4th pick. So let me give you my 3rd, Chris, and then we'll be all square heading into the last one. I'm going to the Xfinity Series and I'm taking John Hunter Nemechek to the 20 car. This is a move that I am very much looking forward to. I'm going to talk at some point tonight and then, as the season goes on about the Xfinity Series because I have never really been a fan of the Xfinity Series, gambling and watching it. If some of you guys on Twitter or in our group chat say like, "Hey, I love this driver," on Saturday, I'll blindly throw it in, but I've never really been into it. This season for Xfinity, I am fired up, and it's because of silly season. It's because
Mm-hmm.
of these changes, seeing how we've got guys coming down from the Cup Series, coming up from the Truck Series, moving around in the Xfinity Series. This is geared up to be a phenomenal storyline season for Xfinity, and it starts to me with John Hunter Nemechek because he is someone who has zero ego in my mind. He started in the Truck Series, then got pushed a little too quickly to the Cup Series, didn't have the success that you'd hope for. They kind of gave up on him pretty quickly. And instead of saying, hey, I'm going to take another shitbox ride in the Cup Series because I need to stay in the Cup Series, he went down and rode around in the 4 car for KBM, dominated races, won races, and was a championship contender. And so I love that about him. Now he's stepping up into a car that is legitimate in the next series up in the Xfinity Series. That 20 car for JGR is a championship contender. He's instantly in that conversation. So I'm excited to see him in a new spot. He didn't leave KBM because I was always kind of wondering, like, well, who's going to blink first here? Like, is he going to leave KBM or, because there's no way they would ever quit him. And it was just a natural situation with KBM fading away from Toyota, him obviously signed with Toyota. So it was perfect to see that come to fruition here. So the 20 car, John Hunter in the Xfinity Series. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so I didn't have this one in my top 5, and the only reason I didn't is because I think I feel a little bit differently about his Truck Series career here, or like I guess, post Cup Series truck career,
Okay.
where like I was expecting him to go down and like really dominate and like really like win some championships. And I felt like there was a period of time where he kind of disappeared. Like he wasn't he wasn't in the mix for like a long stretch of the season. Um, and again, that could have just been there was a period of time where KBM as a whole was kind of struggling, so that might have not been directly correlated to him. But I was a little let down actually by his truck career.
Was it because
So
he didn't win a title? Like, if he had won a title, you would not have been let down?
yeah, I think so. I think honestly, yeah,
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I could see that. I understand that point of it. But going back to look at his statistics in the truck series, like he, especially not last year, but the year before, like he was
well, yeah, the year
dominant.
before he was, yeah,
Um, this past season, I think you could kind of make a case about Toyota in the truck series already starting to see the writing on the wall. But even then, like he was, very good
yeah,
all season. But I get your point. Like if you're going to drop down to play around down there, you should be, like basically like fighting kids
right.
and kicking them off you.
And it's like I said, it's not that he was bad. It's just I think I was expecting more. So I'm equally as excited as you. Like I think this is a great move for him to go to Xfinity. I think we've got Gregson and Ty graduating. You've got Chandler Smith coming up with him. So you've got there's going to be a lot of you got Priest obviously moving up as well. So you've got a lot of guys and Almendinger. So there's a lot of guys that have moved. There's a lot of wins on the table all of a sudden. And it's a great segue into my last one, which is Custer moving down to Xfinity.
Perfect.
So again, I think this is actually, I mean, it sounds weird to say this, but similar to Kyle Busch in the sense that it's a refresh for his career because Custer's been at the Xfinity level, has been dominant, went to Cup, was not not even on surface level dominant. I mean, like was bad actually, and now he's coming back to his playground to see if he still has it. And I think it's going to be exciting to see. I think all year long, the battle we're going to see between Custer and John Hunter Nemechek and Sammy Smith and Chandler Smith and all these guys is going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of new faces in the Xfinity series, like you said. So, yeah, I think Custer is going to be where I'm going to finish out my top 5 here.
I think it's a great call out. I'm just as I had it written down as like an honorable mention here for me, but he is that same guy. Like I know there's some nepotism going on in Stuart Haas with Cole Custer, but you could see if you're someone who's kind of used to getting your way, silver spoon type of deal. He could have thrown a hissy fit and said, "No, I'm going to go to another team and I'm going to drive for Spire or somebody else like that." He's taking his medicine. He's saying, I want to get better and I'm going to go drive in the Xfinity series. Why not? Like,
Yeah,
it's cushy. I can show my talents off again. I respect that. Like, as a fan of NASCAR, I respect that. As a gambler of NASCAR, I'm very excited because I think Cole Custer is going to bring some good weekends for us. I have not looked at the updated odds to win the championship. I have to imagine that he's up there. I have to imagine that John Hunter's up there. So it's going to make this season really fun. And we're going to go through the JSKI site in a second of everybody in each series and kind of talk about, these are the guys that you're going to have to watch for. So I love it. And I'm going to end mine. My 5th is also in the Xfinity series. Now he's not moving. Now you called out Chandler Smith. I love Chandler Smith getting a shot to race with colleague in the Xfinity series. I love when truck drivers prove themselves and get a shot. I'm actually hoping to see more out of Sheldon Creed, Austin Hill, guys that we loved in the truck series who had success in the truck series, championships there. I want to see them perform a little bit better, especially with all the graduating class we've got moving out of Xfinity. You said it best. There are wins that are open now. I want to see those guys perform. But I'm talking about someone in my 5th pick here who is moving within the Xfinity series, but it's because of the team that he's landing on, and it's Brandon Jones moving to JRM. That 9 car is, I mean, would you say that's the car? Like if you were going to be a driver, that's who I would want to drive for. That's the car I would want to drive is the 9 car. It's just got so much success. You could tell they went out, they got their guy, and the way that his season ended, with the Toyota camp and Ty Gibbs, screwing him over. He couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. This is perfect. He's got the sponsors for it. Menard's following him. Like, this is going to be great for Brandon Jones. I think he's got to be in the championship picture if we're talking about that, for like a Final Four possibility. This is a sought after seat. He's got it, and I can't wait to see what he does with it. So that's why I have it in my 5, because I'm excited to see what happens in that role. Like, I can't imagine they're going to see a drop off, because it's not like they filled it with somebody they didn't really want to fill it with. It was a guy that they got for a reason. So, did he cross your mind at all when we were talking about this stuff, or what are your expectations for him?
Yeah, I have him as an honorable mention as well. And I think another point that we'll see when we're going through J-Ski, but JRM actually shifted their crew chiefs around too.
Yep.
And they've got Jason Burdett coming to his side, and that's the most accomplished crew chief that JRM has.
Yep.
So that's pretty telling. And he's bringing Menards, like you mentioned. That's a lot of funding. I think the 9 is by far the car you want to be in. And Brandon Jones seems, the way he handled that whole Ty Gibbs situation in the year, like with pure class, like
Yep.
he's got to be a guy that is just like going to rack up some fans and rack up hopefully a lot of wins next year. I think he's going to be. I think this is going to be like a big career trajectory for him, because for a while he was being talked about as like, is he going to move up to, like, I think he was being considered before Harrison Burton was even being considered to move up to the 21 Wood Brothers. And I wasn't really sure how I felt about that, because I feel like Brandon or Harrison really hadn't proved enough for me. But this could do it. This really could be the next guy that we're talking about the end of next year, of like, hey, is it time to start talking about him for Cup?
Yeah, I mean, me, like I'm a person that really wants to see them, a few times. One season isn't enough for me. But I think if he were to dominate, I mean, he's been in the Xfinity series for a few years now. So if he were to do great, why not give that a look and see what he can do? Just to kind of recap our top picks, and then I'll open it up to any honorable mentions before we move through the J-Ski sites to try to update on everybody, all the changes. Chris's picks final here. Tyler Reddick to the 45 is his first pick. Kyle Busch to the 8, second pick. AJ Allmendinger to the 16 is his third, all Cup Series. Then we're moving to the trucks. Deegan to the 13 truck. And then his fifth and final is Cole Custer to the 00 Xfinity car. Those are Chris's top silly season changes for 2023 heading into that season. Mine, a couple repeats. Kyle Busch was my first to the 8 car. I'm excited to see that. AJ Allmendinger is going to be a gambler's best friend this year to the 16. John Hunter Nemechek in the 20 car for Xfinity. Thor Sport as a team moving to the Ford manufacturer is my fourth pick. And then Brandon Jones moving to the 9 car for JRM in the Xfinity series. That's my top 5 picks. So, Chris, any honorable mentions at this point?
I do have one for you. And that's because I'm not really sure that it would have counted if I would have used this one.
Okay.
So that's why I was really vague when I texted you yesterday and said, how do you define silly season? Because I wanted to see what you're going to say.
Yeah.
So I have one that's not driver related, not crew chief related, not sponsor related. But how can we not talk about North Wilkesboro as being a top silly season move, right? Going to rejuvenating the track and bringing it back.
Good pick. I'm excited for it. Are you going to that race? Sorry to cut you off, but are you going to go to that?
I would love to, but I think that traffic's going to be a nightmare. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get in there early enough to not wait in 4 hours of traffic. I don't know. I would really want to. So I need to revisit that and see if I can land a way to be there. Because it is only about an hour and a half away from me. But this is another way of saying, like, obviously we're bringing back a track that's had a lot of success in the histories of NASCAR. If you listen to our friend of the pod, Derek Yoder's All Things Go podcast, with the man who was really the guy who instigated that whole charge of bringing North Wilkesboro back. He talks about how they're trying to keep as much of the existing structure itself together as they can and not try to just rip it apart and put on all this new stuff. They want to try to keep the ground roots there. Is really cool. So I think as a whole, that's that bringing North Wilkesboro back. But then also, I just happened to listen to the Teardown yesterday actually because they released kind of like their top things to follow for 2023, their top stories to follow. And Jordan Bianchi dropped a little nugget about how Steve Phelps told the Athletic specifically that they're looking to add a new track to the schedule every single year to keep things exciting.
No.
So when you're looking at, we've got North Wilkesboro, we've got the Chicago road course. What did we have this past year? Why am I drawing a blank? Do we have something new?
Was it one of the road courses? No.
I guess Atlanta, I guess technically, maybe.
Maybe Atlanta's new configuration.
Yeah.
Super Speedway was their new
but
one.
Apparently New York City is being mentioned as a possibility for their next market they want to tackle.
I'm not a fan of that.
But you're a fan of, right, at least introducing something new every year, right? I think it's kind of cool.
Yes, very much a fan of that. That the aspect of the more street races. Like if they're going to do Chicago and then they're going to take Chicago off the schedule to go to New York City, fine. I don't. That
exactly
is fine with me.
Yeah.
But I think they need, if they're going to commit to that, like if that's something they're actually going to try to do, I would want to see them try to turn some of these tracks like North Wilkes-Barre into a cup or truck or Xfinity, whatever. Put smaller tracks in middle of nowhere markets to try to help those communities. That would be awesome. Like that's the Field of Dreams type game that the MLB started doing a couple years ago. Let's do that. Like that kind of thing in the middle of nowhere. So I love hearing that. New York City, I don't know. I mean, I'm a little skeptical about Chicago, to be quite honest with you, but because
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, because they took away one of the other road courses and made it that, fine. They're not, I'm still a little like skeeved out about the whole Bristol dirt thing because you're taking away Bristol once of the two times. So I'm excited to hear that news, but skeptical to see what they do with it. But you got to give them credit for trying at a very high level. We're no longer the schedule release. You remember like when they would do the schedule release stuff and it would just be the same exact thing as the year before, but they'd make it like a big deal.
They'd market it like it was.
Yeah. Like or like NBC Sports would be like, okay, here we go. Nothing would change. Now it really is a big deal. So it's fun. And I'm going to let you finish there, but I just wanted to pull up. It's the All Things Go podcast, the third episode. It's called Challenge Accepted. Barry Braun is the guy.
Yep.
Very interesting conversation. If you're into the North Wilkes-Barre thing, very good conversation to hear how that track got rejuvenated. So, but sorry, Chris, go ahead.
No, you're good. I'm glad you plugged that because I couldn't remember his name either. But yes, I think if New York City is going to be a possibility, I think they're going to use Chicago street course as like their test. Like, can this work first? And then can we copy F1 going to Vegas and do it in New York City? Basically, it's probably, I think that's probably the way they're looking at it. So,
yeah, I mean, hey, I'm always going to be sitting there just going like, okay, like I'll watch, I'll see you do this, but like, am I going to be happy about it from like a gambling standpoint? Probably not. But we'll see. Chicago will be quite the test. I have one similar to that as far as an honorable mention. Again, not a driver, not a crew chief, not a team, but Craftsman is back as the title sponsor for the Truck Series. It feels good. I finally started to get used to saying the Gander Outdoor Truck Series or whatever it was for years, and then now we're going back to Craftsman. It just feels good. It's like peanut butter and jelly. Craftsman Truck Series. I cannot wait to find the remote and pull it up on my Comcast and have that say it, because the other one, I don't think it was Gander Outdoor even last year, but
it's Camping World, right?
Camping World last year. Even Camping World Truck Series, like it just took the whole screen. Now Craftsman Truck Series.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. I sound like an old man yelling at a cloud talking about that, I'm sure. But
you're waiting for Busch Series and Winston Cup to come back too.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm waiting. Yeah, Winston Cup. When's that coming back? But love to see. I mean, to me, that says something about NASCAR. Like I just talked about how the the storylines are there. Like if we were going to do like a Netflix documentary or something like that, there are so many different storylines. And I think it's cool to see a sponsor like Craftsman, who was once in the series, who left, um, not all the way 2 feet out, but now they're saying, hey, we want to be back involved again. That tells you that the health of the sport is really starting to pick up. As much as there are people out there that want to, be the negative Nancy about NASCAR, the health of the sport is good. And I think Craftsman coming back to be the title sponsor says that. So, at least for the truck series. So happy to see that.
Yeah, no, it's always good when you see a big time sponsor like that come back. That's what's all you can ask for, honestly.
Yeah.
So agreed. I like that.
All right. Well, any other honorable mentions?
I mean, I could keep naming honorable mentions all day long. I think we should probably get to J Ski and we'll talk
Move
about them
through.
as we come through. Yeah.
Sounds good. So now we're going to move here to, let's see, go back to this view here, and I'm going to pull up the JSki site. Like I said, it's jski.com. They've got all the news. I mean, the name of his site is the Silly Season site. So you got to love that. But what we're going to do is go through, we're going to start with the truck series. And they do a good job of calling out like the new drivers for the year. So it's got the rookie of the year candidates at the top of the screen. And then anything in red is a change. It's a new driver, a new sponsor, crew chief, whatever. And so the way we're going to do this here is I'm going to call out any of the changes as we're scrolling through. And just kind of, if I see something, again, the goal is to arm you as the listener with all the information of all the changes as going into the 2023 season. So I might not call out like every single sponsor or, crew chief or anything like that, but the major changes you're going to see on the screen here, or we're going to call it out to you listening in the podcast. And we're going to say, I'm going to start, right, the truck series. I'm going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as like excitement level. And then, Chris, I want you to say higher or lower. And then, if it bears any more conversation, we'll go from there. If there's anything that's super intriguing that maybe we didn't get to in our first segment, let's talk about it. But we are going to do some quick hitters here. So the very first thing, scrolling through the truck, the number one truck vacated by Haley Deegan, the Tricon Garage Toyota. I mean, this is not announced yet, and this is just going to prove my point about how Toyota is just kind of like I don't know, they're becoming a wasteland in the truck series, which is sad to see, I guess, if you're a Toyota fan. The number 2 truck for Rev Racing Chevrolet is Nick Sanchez. He's a rookie of the year candidate, and Danny Stockman is the crew chief. He's a pretty well-renowned crew chief. Pretty sure he was Kyle Busch's truck crew chief for at least a little while. Could be wrong there. The number 4 KBM Chevy. All right. So this is one that I did not call out in our previous segment as far as like our top 5, but it was kind of a thread that we could have pulled when the Kyle Busch conversation got pulled up earlier. KBM moving to Chevy. They're going to have 2 teams, and this is huge. I'm very anxious to see how this goes this year because they were so dominant in Toyotas. They had what seemed to be like an endless roster of young drivers coming up that just outperformed what your expectations were. And then you got people like John Hunter coming back down to race for you. I mean, they produced so many drivers over the years, and now they're kind of restarting. And they chose some drivers that maybe took me by surprise. I don't know about you, Chris, but the number 4, which was John Hunter's number last year, kind of the premier number for KBM, is Chase Purdy. So any thoughts? Sorry, I didn't start with the Nick Sanchez thing. We're going back to the number 2 car. That's a 1 out of 10 for me. I don't know, higher or lower for Nick Sanchez for you.
I mean, a 1 feels a little disrespectful, so I'll say higher we'll give it like a 3.
Maybe a 3 for the Danny Stockman element to it because I think
Okay, that's fair.
he's a good name. But number 4, this is a 9 out of 10 for me. What are your thoughts, higher or lower?
I'm only going to go lower just because of what you said. Like I'm shocked at the drivers that they signed to KBM. I would have thought they could have lured in a little more talent here. So I'm going to go lower just because I I have no idea what to expect from them. Like I have new manufacturer, brand new drivers, probably all new backing. It's just like it. It goes back to what we've kind of talked about for the last hour, but it almost feels like it's a startup all over again. And like, what are we going to see?
Yeah, and that's why I have it as an excitement level of 9
Oh, you're
because
right. Okay, so I guess I'm looking at it wrong. I'm looking at it as like
well,
how
there's no wrong
success.
or right.
No, but I was kind of thinking of I was doing my ranking in my head of like how successful I think they're going to be. But excitement,
Gotcha.
I see what you're saying. Excitement, yeah, you're right. I'll give it to you.
Success is a different conversation, and we can have that right now. Like I'm excited about it because I want to see if KBM with this fresh restart clearly going back and saying, hey, we're going to see if we still have that, staying power with a new manufacturer, with drivers that we know are not proven. Let's see how we compete.
Yeah.
As far as competitiveness, I don't think Chase Purdy I don't think, as to quote Rory, I don't think he's got that dog in him, but we'll see. I mean, that's why I'm excited about it because I want to be proven wrong. I'm cheering for the KBM guys in the Chevy and Chase Purdy. I've always been a fan of the Ford truck. So Chase Purdy driving that car, I'm anxious to see it. I don't expect them to be in a championship hunt with some of these other guys that, are already around because you talk about wins being up for grabs. The truck series is definitely open. So there's that. So you're going a little less than 9, but it seems like we're pretty much on the same page with the number 4. The number 5 Tricon Garage Toyota is Dean Thompson. Looks like he's sponsored by his family's company, Thompson Pipe Group. They don't have a crew chief yet. I'm going to say this is like a 2 out of 10 for me. Higher or lower for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Man, you give him some tough numbers. A 2. Um, I'll say higher just because I think he is like a late model champion. Like I think he does have like success in lower series. So I'll say higher just because it could be exciting. We don't know, and it's a proven team at least. That's more than KBM can say.
Well, so we're getting to the next change here, which is his teammate. And this is the number 11 Tricon Garage Toyota, Corey Heim. And I'm very excited to see Corey Heim now. He was a KBM driver last year. He was winning. Did he win how many races? 1 or 2? Um, but he was like a part-time driver, but he was like
Yeah,
a pest. Like he just kept getting in the way of my bets and performed very well in that shine, that small opportunity to shine at KBM. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
yeah, no, I agree. I'm actually gonna go higher. I think Corey Haim could be the prime candidate to really give. Oh my god, I'm drawing a blank on our champion.
Zane?
Zane, giving Zane a little bit of a battle up front from week to week. And I did just spot check. He did have 2 wins last year, Atlanta and Gateway. So yeah, I think this is arguably one of the most exciting moves in the
And it
truck
was the
series.
Gateway win that was, impressive more so than Atlanta because that was like, oh, like he's not just a super speedway guy, like kind of lucked into that as a young guy. Gateway, that's a more technical racetrack. He was able to get
Mm-hmm.
it done. And now he is someone that you would say, all right, well, that's a shame, right? KBM left when he was going to be like the guy at a shop like that. That's a shame for him. I'm excited to see how he handles this in this number 11 truck. So, yeah, should be fun to watch. That's for sure. The number 12, the Young's Motorsports Chevy. Spencer Boyd's got a new crew chief. Can't even pronounce the guy's first name, but his last name is Law. It's like
Was actually the
Kroner.
sponsor.
Oh, that's the sponsor. Sorry, I'm looking at the true. Oh, got my things mixed up here. Yeah, sponsor, new sponsor there. We don't need to worry about that. Then the 13 is Haley Deegan and the new Thor Sport Ford. She's got her crew chief. She's got her sponsors all ready to go. So Haley Deegan, we talked about her. I think she's a 9 out of 10 for me. Seems like we kind of beat that into the ground. But anything else to say about her?
No, I think the only thing I'm waiting to see is if TJ Majors is going to stick with her as her spotter or not. I don't know if he will or not. He might, I guess, because he is with Ford with RFK. But TJ Majors, I think, is one of the top spotters out there. So if he's able to stick with her, that would make this a 10, I think.
That's a good call out. And yeah, that is. I would actually like to see a list of, because those spotters, they work the weekend, most of them,
Yeah.
and so I would like to see the graph of, okay, who's got an Xfinity or Cup Series spotter for them in these trucks as well. Like that would be a cool graph to make. Maybe if this was pre-Christmas, I might put that as like an off-season little project, but I don't know if I've got that in me.
What makes that hard is that sponsors or not sponsors, spotters are independent contractors, so they could do whatever they want as
Do
far as
whatever
who
they
they.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's not as like tied down for like a full season. All right. The number 15 is the Tricon Garage Toyota. It's again, Tricon really trying to take the gap left by KBM. They've got Tanner Gray in there. He's not, that's not a change. It's just the Toyota aspect of it, I believe, is the change here. So Tricon trying to step into the shoes of KBM that's being left behind. Can they lift Toyota up when it seems like they have fallen? Another Tricon is the 17 of Taylor Gray. So yeah, they've got a bunch of cars this season. I guess, is that 4 cars? Is that
Yeah.
5 cars?
They've got, well, I think isn't it just 3 or is it 4? But
They got Tricon.
it's basically the old DGR team is what it is.
I think I counted 5. So I guess the number 1 might be like an extra car. So we've got 4 full-time cars: Tanner Gray, Taylor Gray, Corey Heim, and who was the other one? Dean
Thompson. Yeah.
Yeah, Dean Thompson. So yeah, a lot of, Toyota's putting their money into Tricon. Would be interesting. So I'll give that a 5 out of 10. I don't know, higher or lower for you, Chris.
I'll go lower.
Okay. So now we get into one that I do have some interesting thoughts on. It's Christian Eckes moving to the 19 car. He's replacing Derek Kraus, who, really, I didn't see if he landed anywhere.
He hasn't yet.
I think he's like kind of out on an island right now. But Eckes, he is someone that I really liked betting on last year. And driving this 19 car, I'm anxious to see what he can do in the Chevy, sponsored by Napa. It's a, gold standard sponsor. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10 as far as excitement goes.
Yeah, I'll go a little lower just because. Yeah, I'm gonna go lower. I'm gonna go lower for this one, just because it's not like a team that's like top of the food chain as far as the truck series goes. And Derek Kraus was actually like very much of a disappointment. So to see him be replaced by Eckes is kind of interesting. But I'll go lower just because I think the other moves mean more to me than this one.
Yeah, this is exciting to me because I want to, like, Eckes was in the conversation for a championship.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see if he's able to, bring this team up a little bit. That's what I'm anxious to see. As far as competitive, like if we were ranking this from a competitive standpoint, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. I think we can't be too optimistic for Eckes, but I'm cheering for them. And I excited to see how does this work out, because you could put X driver, right? You've got a driver who's experienced in any series, moving to a team that's kind of a downgrade for them. You look at Kyle Busch, kind of a similar situation. Matty D last year going down to the truck series. A driver in that scenario with this new car, that's where my mind is at. Like, how big of an impact can this more experienced driver make for a team that hasn't been as good historically? So Christian Eckes has the magnifying glass on him from me. All right, moving through here, GMS Racing Chevy, we got Rajat Caruth with Wendell Scott Foundation as their sponsor. That was a big announcement for NASCAR. And then Chad Walter is the crew chief. I know they made a big deal about the Wendell Scott sponsorship situation for NASCAR. I'm going to give us a 4 out of 10. I don't really expect much here. I think he's going to be kind of running like, 15 to 25. But what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm going to go higher on this one. I'm actually kind of intrigued. I think Raj has got a lot of potential. I think he's got a big following. He's he just seems like he's a really fun guy. Like I really think he's going to bring a lot of energy to the sport, and see him full time for a team that's been in the Truck Series for a while in GMS and they've been successful. Um, I think this is an interesting one to follow. I'm excited to see Raja, honestly.
He filled in the 7 car or truck rather last year a couple times, and
Yeah,
I kind of got caught up in him jumping into that car as far as gambling is concerned. I took a
yeah,
couple flyers on him, and he didn't really do that well. So I might have a
right.
bitter taste in my mouth, but it'll be interesting to see him in a full time ride, and what they can do there. Um, all right, see if we're getting to it here. All right, so we've got the number 43 GMS Racing Chevy. It's Daniel Dye. He's up for Rookie of the Year. Travis Sharp is his crew chief this year. Yeah, I mean, with the rookies in the Cup Series, excuse me, with rookies in the Truck Series, I'm pretty sure this guy's like super young. So, like to see these young guys how they adapt and kind of take everybody by storm. So, I'll give this a 6 out of 10. I'm interested to see how this goes down.
I'm going to go lower just because I'm not a fan of him.
You're not a fan of Daniel Dye? Give me a reason not to like him.
He's been really controversial.
Oh,
Um,
has he?
he got arrested for like felony battery last year at one point.
What?
Yeah. Um, yeah,
Wow.
I don't know if he actually got convicted or anything. I think but he was suspended for a while and had to get and like got reinstated. But there was like a battery charge that was being contemplated. He just doesn't seem like he's got his head on straight, if I'm being honest. So yeah,
Yikes. Okay. What's
I don't.
GMS doing signing him? Well, to be honest, that makes me even more interested. I want to see what's going on
That's
here.
okay. That's fair.
How old is he then? I don't have the Google up here,
uh,
but I mean, if
17. Well, he was 17 at the
7
time of this. All this stuff was going on.
he caught a charge as a 17-year-old? What was he doing?
Oh, I remember that now that I clicked the story. Okay, you might have actually heard of this and you just don't realize it. Did you hear about? So he's the one who punched a fellow student in the nuts and like ruptured the kid's testicle.
Oh my God. Yes.
This is
Holy
him.
cow, dude. Wow. All right. Well, that we won't speculate anymore about that situation because I don't feel like thinking about that, but that is wild. Okay. So the 43 card just got, I don't know. I think 6 out of 10 is a good ranking there.
Maybe it made it more interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, scrolling through here, the other 51 KBM Motorsport Chevy is going to be ridden by Jack Wood. Doesn't have any sponsors. Brian Patty is the crew chief. It's a good crew chief for Jack Wood. And Jack drove the 24 car for GMS last year and really didn't do much. Was you know remember having expectations, kind of like what we just talked about with Raja, and Jack just didn't get it done. So for them to choose, like we talked about, Chase Purdy and Jack Wood, kind of just basically saying like, hey, we're going young, we're going inexperienced, and we're going to see what we can put together here. So I'm going to call this a 7 out of 10. What do you think, higher or lower?
I'm gonna say lower, but the only thing that does make it more interesting is the Brian Patty part. The fact that you're getting a Cup crew chief for such a young
Mm-hmm.
driver, I think, could make it interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited here. Let's see, Thor Sport moving to Ford. We talked about that. So that's Ty Majeski in the 66, Matt Craft in the 88, and then Ben Rhodes in the 99. So those are the changes for the truck series. I am pumped for this truck series. There are so many guys. Will Ben Rhodes bounce back? Will Zane Smith, his over under right now is 4.5. Will he be able to capture some of these wins of these guys that aren't there anymore? With John Hunter and Chandler Smith moving up, there are wins to be had. These Ty Majeski, what's he going to do this year? So a lot of different championship contenders to talk about in the truck series. I'm looking forward to this playing out. The only problem with being such a fan of gambling on the truck series and like watching the truck series is that it's not every weekend. Like only
Yeah,
23 races in a year. It's like so brutal when you have to wait a while. All right, so let's move to the Xfinity series, and I'll let you. I guess since I have the mouse, I'll still call it out, but I'll let you rank it, and then I'll go higher or lower. So, Cole Custer, he's not showing up red here. I guess it's been news for so long, but Cole Custer driving the 00 car. He's got Jonathan Toney as his crew chief. What's your ranking on this one?
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and set the bar. This one as a 9. I had it in my top 5 as kind of one of the most interesting moves. I was trying to look. I thought I had written down some notes on the crew chief as well. Oh yeah, Jonathan Toney. He was the lead engineer for Tony Stewart Championship in 2011. So between Custer and bringing back an old time crew chief, I think this makes this an interest level of a 9 for me.
Without a doubt, I'm a 9 or a 10. So I guess if I can't be equal, I'll be over. Really excited to see Cole see if he can do it. Right, the ball is in his court, kind of like Haley. The ball is in her court. It's in his court here in the 00. I love how, he's back in the 00. When I think of Cole Custer, like that's what I think of. I think a lot of people feel that way. So yeah, Cole in the 00, definitely high.
Also, before we go too far, we did forget one from the Truck Series, but you would have had to scroll down to the very bottom. But KBM does have an alliance with Rev Racing, and
are they running part-time?
Yeah, and Nick Sanchez is going to be driving that car. I think it's Nick Sanchez. Is that right?
Nick Sanchez we called out as the driver of the 2 car.
Yeah, right. It's not Nick Sanchez. Who is it then? Maybe that's the truck then. Maybe the 2 truck is the alliance.
Yeah,
it is Rev Racing. Okay,
number 2.
That's what it is.
The Donnie Stockman guy. Yeah.
Yep.
They will have an alliance with KBM and run a full truck schedule. Yeah. So maybe that makes it. I think I gave that a 2. Maybe you chose the over. I think the over was a good pick there.
Sorry, didn't mean to go back. I just had that in my notes written down. So,
I mean, that's huge for gamblers, knowing that there's an alliance there. It's tough to bet trucks because, like I said, you need your driver that you want to either be in a matchup or you got to take a real big swing and say they're going to finish top 5 because years past, we've not had top 10s. Hopefully that's coming. But if it's the same as last year, betting a top 5 on Nick Sanchez be tough to do. But hopefully, that alliance will help with them and we'll see them up there. So moving forward now, we talked about the 00, the JRM crew. There's only one major change, but like you called out, Chris, they're getting crew chief carousel here in this one. So Sam Mayer, the 1 car driver, Marty Lindley is the crew chief there. What's your over-under?
I'm gonna go 7 on this one only because did you know that Lindley and Sam Mayer were already together as a pair, and they won a K&N championship and an ARCA championship together. So pairing them back together, I think makes this really interesting.
They know what they're doing at JRM. I'll tell you what. Like you called out Brandon Jones's crew chief a minute ago.
Yep.
They clearly know what they're doing. I did not know that ARCA connection. And that's huge for a driver like this who's like trying to make a big stand this season, using JRM as a stepping stone. I think Sam Mayer, just to kind of, dive in here for a quick second, like if I'm Sam Mayer, I'm kind of in a tough spot because you're driving, you saw Noah move up. Then the conversation was always like, well, what if JRM gets a cup charter? Who would that be? And we've seen Dale Jr. just have glowing things to say about our guy that we'll get to in a second here, Josh Berry. And you see Noah go up. You see the love for Brandon Jones. Justin Allgaier is just like the dad of the group. You're kind of the forgotten dude here. And so this is a perfect move. If you're saying that they've had these connections in years past, you said a couple championships, ARCA and where else?
The K&N series.
K&N series. So
yeah,
that's a brilliant move by whoever at JRM put that together, because a guy like this might need that support, because you're looking around the room like, damn, is anybody forgetting me? So good move. Sam Mayer, look for him to make some strides this year because of that.
Did I convince you on the 7 then? What's your interest level there now?
I mean, I was below a 7, but that piece of information that'll put me over. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going through here. Now we will have to we're going to call out every change, even if we're not necessarily too familiar with it or care that much about it. But the number 07 SS Greenlight Racing Chevy is going to be driven by Blaine Perkins. Crew chief is Mike Hillman Sr. What's your over under on that one, Chris?
Yeah, I'll give that one a 1.
Yeah, I'm probably a 0, so I'll go under a 1. Um, then we get to the number 7, JRM Chevy. It's Justin Allgaier, as we know, but he's got the new crew chief, Jim Pullman. Anything on that one?
I thought I looked him up, but I didn't write anything down. But I think he's like one of the more established. Like he's been around for a while, I think is what I remember reading about him. But not as convincing as the other crew chiefs in the mix here. So yeah, I'll give this one a 4.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I would probably say under as well, because I feel like if you're a new crew chief for Justin Allgaier, Justin is kind of the one running the show. Like he's there.
Yeah.
He's doesn't seem like he has aspirations to move back up into the Cup Series. This is kind of where he'll be, kind of like a Matt Crafton situation. Like I'm fine running Saturdays for the rest of my career. So you're coming into
So
that camp.
it looks like this guy's most notable, like what he's kind of known for as a crew chief. He served as a crew chief for Juan Pablo Montoya in 2011.
All right. Well, not that good then. He was a jet dryer, the jet
That's a
dryer guy.
reference.
All right. So we'll move to Josh Berry. I guess he's got the same crew chief as last year, according to Jayski. I don't know if that's correct.
No, Taylor Moore was the same mayor last year.
Oh, he was. Okay. So yeah, he's not showing
That
up
should
red.
be red. Yeah.
So it's got some new sponsors this year. Like I said, Dale Jr. was talking about him nonstop. So that's probably where the sponsors are coming from. Bass Pro Shops being the big name. Any ranking here that you can come up with, 1 to 10?
I'm going to give this one a 7 just because we're going to reference All Things Go again. Taylor Moyer was on with Derek Yoder on that podcast with him and Brian Murphy, and it was quite the listen, and they seem really pumped up about this pairing, so I'll give it a 7.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in the gambling community are looking at Josh Berry as a championship pick. And, you know, if you're not paying attention to the gambling odds, maybe, in October when he's in the playoffs and he's hunting, like maybe people are going to be like, oh, where'd he come from? But I think this is a trendy championship pick. And if he's got a solid crew chief to come help him through that, then great. We talked about the number 9, Brandon Jones for JRM. He's got Menards. He's got Jason Burdett. Any ranking on this one?
We'll go another 9 here.
Yeah, I'll go over because he was one of the guys I called out in the previous segment. Yeah. So then scrolling through here, we're getting to another name that I'm excited to talk about. I'm anxious to hear your ranking. This is the number 16 Colleague Racing Chevy for the Xfinity Series, and it's Chandler Smith moving up from the Cup Series, signed on to ride full time. So, what is your excitement level ranking 1 to 10 for Chandler?
I'm going to go an 8 here because not only did he leave KBM and leave Toyota, he's moving over to Chevy. So manufacturer changes are always big because they're trying to, that's them saying they're trying to kind of find a new direction with their career, and see where they can go with it. And Colleague, we've seen a lot of, prior to last year, they've showed a lot of success in the Xfinity Series. And then, you had Dinger really, really competing big time for them last year. So to take over that car, this could be pretty big time for him.
Yeah, it's tough when you're a truck driver and you've had success. I called out Sheldon Creed, I called out Austin Hill earlier, and you're going into a car that, doesn't really have the blueprint for success, but the 16, it has had that success. So really happy for him that he snagged this ride. Excited to see what he can do with it. What was your number?
8.
8. Yeah, I would say I'm a 9. Like I'm
Okay.
really excited to hear see what goes down with Chandler. And in the truck series last year, I used to do like a Smith Boys parlay, like on matchups. Well, now I can do it with race wins, and we'll see how that goes. That might not be too lucrative, at least in the start of the season, but we'll see. So Chandler Smith in the 16 car. Then in the 18, Sammy Smith, he's got a new crew chief, Jeff Meendering. Don't know that name. Do you know anything about Jeff as the crew chief here?
I have nothing on him.
Okay. So what's your interest, excitement level here for the 18?
Well, and technically, I know Sammy Smith's not really red because he did do a few races in this car last year, but um, I'm still kind of counting it as new. I don't know if you are, but I would say a 6.
Yeah, I guess I'll go lower. Um, I Sammy Smith, I know I've seen people, like I said, I've not really been a big Xfinity fan. This is going to be like, I'm going to be all in on Xfinity, at least watching it until I really get a hold of the gambling on it, feeling confident enough to put out picks for Xfinity. But I've seen people call out Sammy Smith as a pick weekend or on a random weekend. But it doesn't really excite me all that much at this point right now in January. So, what does is the next one is number 19 JGR Toyota, which is Ryan Truex. The 19 car in the Xfinity series is a pretty big deal, and he's got the crew chief Jason Ratcliffe, which is also a big name. So, what's your excitement level here for Ryan Truex?
I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with a 7. Just because I have no idea what to expect from this. Like Ryan Truex is not like a household name. There's like the running joke that he's Martin's brother, which is not true, which is hilarious to follow because they kind of like both feed into it, which is hilarious. Um, so yeah, so him coming to a big time ride in the 19, like you said, and getting a big time crew chief with it, I think that gauges some interest for sure. So I'll go 7.
I'll say equal. I'll say
Okay.
7 on the dot. I think that's a good pick. Um, yeah. How many times do you think someone's going to get confused and take Truex in the 19 car, meaning
Oh,
Truex in the 19 car?
I didn't even put
You
that
know what I
together.
mean?
That's
Like
hilarious.
they're both driving the 19. Like JGR is not doing much for people with, I don't know, some bad memories. But
They don't have the sponsor there, but I mean Joe Gibbs has already got Bass Pro locked up. Why don't they just give Truex to Truex, Bass Pro to Bass Pro, and just confuse everybody even more?
I mean, there's a marketing possibility here. That's for sure. I could see a commercial right now in my head. Like,
Yeah.
put me in charge. I could put that together. Um, we'll stick with J. Excuse me. We'll stick with JGR, and it's the John Hunter Nemechek call out. I talked about this as one of my options earlier. He's driving. He's got a plethora of sponsors, and Ben Bayshore is his crew chief. So we talked about it a bunch. But what's your rating here for this one?
You convinced me quite a bit. So I'm gonna give this one a 10.
Sorry, I muted myself there so I could cough, and I'm glad. I'm glad. So I guess I'll have to go under. I mean, 10 out of 10. Jeez, man, keep your pants on. Um, no, I probably agree. I'm really excited to see him do big things this year, and if he doesn't, that would be a letdown. All right, so moving through the 24 Sam Hunt Racing Toyota Connor Mosack with Chris Bowen as the crew chief. Anything on these guys?
Not a clue. I'm gonna go with
Okay.
a 2 on this one.
Yeah. I am a fan of like when people try to get into the sport. So Sam Hunt, obviously country music singer, getting into the sport, but yeah, I can't get too
And
excited with this
they're
one,
expanding to 2 teams, which is
which is
cool. Yeah.
aggressive with not much success at all.
Yeah.
Um, I think they're jumping the gun too soon. Um, Number 25 AM Racing, that is Brett Moffitt. Doesn't have a crew chief announced yet. They've got the Roush Yates engine affiliate. Um, I, I want Brett Moffitt to do well, but it just seems like he's just one of those guys, man. He's been like pinballed around and just hasn't had a fair shake, I guess, in the Xfinity series. So it's unfortunate, but what's your excitement level of the 25 car?
I think my excitement is more with seeing what Moffitt can do with a new opportunity, getting away from our motorsports and seeing, yeah, kind of how he'll prosper. So I'll give it a 5 just for that sake.
Yeah, I'll say 6, but same feelings. More so, just like he was so good in the trucks, and it's not like you just forget how to drive. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just hasn't had the equipment. I mean, he's a champion. I have his championship diecast little mini guy right here, right in front of me. So, yeah, I'm clearly into Brett Moffitt and hoping that he has some success. But um, yeah, it's going to be a tough one. So Jordan Anderson Racing, they are expanding to I think a second full-time team. Yeah, it says it right there. So Jeb Burton is driving the 27 Jordan Anderson Racing Chevy. No crew chief announced as far as Jayski is aware, but they got a boatload of sponsors. What are your thoughts on Jeb?
So I've got to give a little shout out here because I had the opportunity to actually sit on his pit box last year at Charlotte. And I was sitting, thanks to their fifth sponsor listed there, that Per Year Tank Lines. I actually have a friend whose stepdad is a co-owner of that business.
Wow.
So that's how I got to be on the pit box for Jeb. And I got to take pictures with Jeb and talk to him and Ward before the race. So for the fact that I have a little fandom kind of going on here,
Yeah.
even though Jeb hasn't really been that great. I'm gonna put my excitement level at 7 just because, hey, Jordan Anderson Racing, it's a team that's been around for a little bit, and he's getting away from our motorsports and kind of starting his own refresh. I guess that's probably our motto of this podcast.
Yeah. I mean,
is drivers getting a refresh. So yeah,
right.
I'm gonna go 7 on this one.
Perfect. I mean, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think you did tell me that story, but I guess it's been a while and I didn't put the 2 and 2 together with the names here. So very cool. And that Pure Year Tank Liners or Tank Lines.
Tank Lines, yeah.
Tank Lines.
They also sponsor a bunch of cars in the car store, and so sorry, this is way off topic, but they go as a sponsor to these races and they sponsor as many cars as they can. And then while they're at on site at these races, they recruit people to come drive for them, which is pretty cool. So they use
Wow.
it as like a
That is
recruiting
cool.
tool.
That's really cool. I like that.
The things you don't know about like the other side of sponsorship, right? Like
Yeah.
just as much as they want to be in the sport, they're trying to recruit people to come to them as well.
You know what? My excitement level is up for the 27 team, Jordan Anderson Racing, Jeb Burton. I like it. We'll stick with Jordan Anderson. He's got Parker Retzlaff. No crew chief announced. I don't know anything about Parker. I don't know if you have anything excitement wise.
No, I'll go 3 on this one.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go below that. Number 34, Jesse Iwuji Motorsports Chevy. I think I'm saying his name right. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it is
Jesse Iwuji. This says that Kyle Weatherman might be running in this car, even though Jesse Iwuji is like listed as the top guy, and it's Jesse Iwuji Racing. It's his team. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but Jesse Iwuji was the guy who got in the way of Ty Gibbs out in the rain, like up in Portland or wherever the hell they were.
Yep.
And basically made a name for himself for being like completely not able to drive. So now he said, you know what, we're going to start our own team.
Yeah, yes, you're 100% correct. And I'm going to expand on this. I'm going to give this a 0 because this guy, oh man, we're probably going to get a little hate for this, but he serves. He's like in the armed forces, I'm pretty sure. But but because of that, he like rarely attends practices. He just shows up.
That's right. I do remember them talking about that. Okay.
Yeah, and it apparently makes a lot of people really upset and really mad because they feel like yes, he's in the armed services and armed forces and he's doing good for the country and everything, but like you need to be there for every part, driver meeting, practice, qualifying, race. You can't just show up and race. That's defeating 100%. The purpose of the sport. This is a professional sport.
That's tough. A 0. Being part of the armed forces. Now, I'd like to understand a little bit more about that as we comment on him starting his own race team. Like if and I don't know much, like my hand is up here. I don't know really much about Jesse at all. But if he still is a member of the armed forces in some capacity and he does have something keeping him away from the racetrack, how are we supposed to expect the 34 car to be much of anything? So, interesting, but we'll see. So 0, I guess I'll go 1. Maybe I'm a little bit more intrigued. I'm just kind of hoping that he doesn't make headlines for the wrong reasons like he did last year. Alpha Prime, they've got a few cars to call out here all in a row, and names that you probably know. Number 43, Alpha Prime Racing Chevy, Ryan Ellis. He's been around the block, and we don't have a crew chief announced, according to Jayski. What's your thoughts on Ryan Ellis in the 43?
So only based upon the fact that him and Matt DiBenedetto had a podcast for a very short time together. This was his co-host. So just for that, little shout out to Matt DiBenedetto here. I'll give it a 5.
All right. Yeah, I'll go I'll go equal 5. Ryan Ellis is actually a hockey player. He was a very good, not this Ryan Ellis. There's a second Ryan Ellis in sports. He was a great defenseman for the Predators, and the Flyers, my team, picked him up, and he hasn't played, I think, more than like 10 games, if at all, for the Flyers because of a like weird injury. So whenever people talk about Ryan Ellis, I've seen people on like my social media feeds like pull up articles about this Ryan Ellis
Yeah.
and then try to talk about like the Flyers Ryan Ellis, and it always results in a lot of confusion, which makes me laugh. So that's that's my Ryan Ellis story. Number 44, Alpha Prime Racing, is Jeffrey Earnhardt, big name. What's your excitement level on Jeffrey here?
Just for the fact that he's an Earnhardt, it's got to be. Well, should I go 3 or 8? Right? That feels
good one. That was good.
I'll go 3. We'll go 3 on that one.
I'll go 4. I'll go higher than a 3 just because Jeffrey, like, I don't know much about him. You know, obviously been seeing his results in the different series that he's been running and the different races. He's been doing like spot races here and there for the last couple seasons. But how can you not cheer for him? Like, he seems like an awesome dude. Just kind of gets it. And, you know, if he's running a full schedule,
and they had that
him.
race where they brought back oh my God, well, who was his crew chief? Remember that whole deal? It was like Talladega or Daytona, and he was running like the 3 or
Larry Mack.
Yeah, it was Larry Mack. Well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It was Larry Mack as the crew chief. That was cool. So if you do
cool.
that again, hey, it's a 10.
Crew chief has a question mark next to it. Larry Mack, if you're listening, that would make my year if you were. And also, the spot's available. Yeah. The number 45 Alpha Prime Racing Chevy has a few different drivers, but the one that they're calling out here is a hell of a name, Leland Honeyman Jr. Anything on Leland, Chris?
Nothing on Leland.
All right. 0 out of 10. I'll be the same there.
Yeah.
All right. This is possibly somebody to talk about. The number 48 Big Machine Racing Chevy, Parker Kligerman, full-time ride for the Xfinity 48 car. What's your over-under?
9. I love this. This was actually, I probably should have brought this up as one of my honorable mentions. I'm a huge fan of Parker Kligerman. I was stoked for him to get this opportunity. He won last year in the Truck Series was it Road America maybe?
It was Road America or like Mid Ohio or like one of those.
Yeah, ones. And then that basically sparked the conversation for this to happen. So like everything about this I like, and he's actually still going to run part-time as well in trucks, and he's going to do pit reporting on Sundays. So he's going to be at like literally in every capacity at the tracks this weekend or this year.
If you're someone out there who like doesn't like Parker, I'd love to just have you comment on something, you know, Twitter or Instagram. Just want to hear why. Like, how could you not cheer for Parker for what he does for the sport from a, you know, reporting angle? And then he hops in the car, you know, every week as he's got all that commitment and goes and races. So really cool to see him get that full-time ride. I would agree. I guess maybe I'm an 8, but I'm not I'm not excited, as they say. So
right.
If you're a 9, I'm right below it. So good, and a good number too, obviously. All right. Now we're getting into some of the, you know, bottom of the barrel, I guess. The 78 BJ McLeod Motorsports Chevy is Anthony Alfredo. Pat Trison is the crew chief. What do you got for me here over under for Fast Pasta?
I do love his name. But for the excitement level, I'm going to go like a 2. I mean, it sucks to see. Like, this guy was a Cup driver, like
I
2 years
know.
ago, and now he's driving for BJ McLeod Motorsports in the Xfinity Series. Like, yeah, I'm just not excited for this.
I know. And it's he's a guy that, like, if you were like controlling the NASCAR world, like you were like playing the Sims, right? And you could like just change or play God. Like, I would love to see what he could have done in like the 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports.
Yeah,
But here we are. You know what I mean? He's driving the 78 for Xfinity. I think this has potential to be a hell of a die cast, the 78 Dude Wipes car, if they do it right. But so I go slightly higher just for the possibility of a cool die cast if Lionel Racing takes the time out to make one. But yeah,
he does have a
kind
big
of
he has a big TikTok following. I will say that he's at least making an effort to like be
relatable
really, yeah,
and
like kind of like Haley's doing with
marketable.
her YouTube channel. Like, so that's cool. But
Yeah,
from a racing standpoint, it's just not there.
hasn't gotten it done. And in that same vein, Josh Bilicki is driving the 91 car DGM Racing Chevy. Mario Goslin is his crew chief. What's your over under for this guy?
We'll go 1. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. Josh Bilicki's just kind of like, I don't know, synonymous with being a back marker. It's
Yeah.
a shame. And then, wow, we just
Very
can't get rid
similar,
of these
right?
guys. They're very similar. 99 BJ McLeod is Garrett Smithley. He's got Lee Leslie as his crew chief. So what's your over under here?
Yeah, it's just another one. It's all these Rick Ware Racing guys. They're just
Yeah,
like
same thing.
they like graduated backwards.
Exactly. It's a great way to put it. It really is. I mean, I'm not trying to laugh. Like, it's just from a fan standpoint, from a gambling standpoint, like these guys
Yeah.
are not really bringing anything to the table.
Garrett Smith did have an iRacing victory when they had that. Remember, like during COVID, they were doing those
During
iRacing
COVID,
races.
that's right. And that
Yeah,
had people saying like, wow, maybe I can bet on them in
yeah,
real life. Not the case. All right, so we'll go to the Cup Series. We talked about a lot of these confirmed changes, but and there's one name that we did not call out that's hanging out here now, and we're going to talk about it when we get there. So we'll scroll through, and Austin Dillon, AD, has a new crew chief, Keith Rodden. Thoughts on this? Actually, I got to be the one to rank for the Cup Series. So I'm going to say I'm 6 out of 10 on this one. Austin, I think, is already getting a bit of a wake up call or a refresher, as we keep saying, with Kyle Busch coming over. You know, it's always been Austin's team, and I think that's to his detriment. Like, I don't think he's a. I watched the show with my wife, and he tries to be kind of like a leader, but it's just, I don't know, it's just missing something. And I think maybe Kyle coming in and just being like that guy to be able to offset him, where he doesn't have to be the leader, is going to be interesting. So to have a new crew chief, a new teammate, I think that's good for Austin Dillon. So I'm giving this a 6 out of 10.
yeah. I'm gonna go equal. I think on this one, just because, well, all the same reasons you did, and then I did write a few notes down for this Keith Rodden. I don't know if you recognize him, but you do know that his longest tenured uh, stint as a crew chief was with Casey Kane.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was
Yeah,
towards the end of Kane's. Yeah, I remember he did an AMA on Reddit when he took over for Casey, and he answered a question that I put in
there you go.
because there weren't too many people asking questions. But yeah, he's
He's very experienced. He's been a race engineer and a crew chief for a bunch of teams, and he recently served as, this is the most interesting. Like, I would love to know what this job actually does, but he most recently served as the Motorsports Competition NASCAR Strategy Group at General Motors.
that sounds fun as hell. Like, sign me up. It seems like they just watch old NASCAR races and talk
Yeah,
about it. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's, I am excited for RCR this season for all the number of reasons that we talked about, and there's just another reason, another fire under the ass of Austin Dillon. So, all right, we're gonna find somebody new here as we're going through the Cup Series, and let's see. Well, we talked about AJ in the 16. He's not showing up red, but we did talk about him, so we won't go any further for him. Let's see. Really scrolling through here. Michael McDowell has a new crew chief, Travis Peterson. That name doesn't do much for me. I'll say I kind of have the same expectations that I have for the last 5 years for Michael McDowell. So I'll rate this like a 2 out of 10. What do you think?
Yeah,
Over under?
yeah. I'm gonna say higher just because Michael McDowell did have somewhat of a breakout season last year, like where he was actually pretty good, but his crew chief left. So was it the him or the crew chief situation? Who was really
We'll
elevating the
see.
team?
He's going to be with. I mean, we'll talk about it in a second here, but he's going to be with the 48 team. So
Yep.
that'll be fun to see that work out. The number 38 Front Row Motorsports Ford is driven by youngster Todd Gilliland. He's still there, but he's got a new crew chief, Ryan Burgundy. I don't. Let's see. I don't know why. Did his old crew chief leave? Like, kind of like a young quarterback. Why, if you can prevent it from happening, why would you have like multiple head coaches or multiple OCs for a young quarterback? This is a kid who, struggled last year, a new crew chief like that quickly.
Well, I think
I don't know.
that second sentence is what explains it. His crew chief moved up to the technical director at Front Row Motorsports.
So that's a promotion.
I would assume. I don't know.
I mean, to me, technical director, maybe. I don't know.
Because that's more of like a overarching team role than just like segmented to one team, I guess. Yeah,
I get that. Yeah. But so even that, right? I would still question Front Row on making that a reality. Like if you have your guy in Seth Barber, who was his crew chief last year, if he's your guy and you want to make him something more, great. Why don't we give it another year? Like, let this kid get used to someone in his ear and all that. But we'll see. Maybe this Ryan Burgundy character is legit.
I will say, as I clicked his name just to see where he came from, he has been the car chief for Michael McDowell's car for the last 2 years. So
all right, so he's part of the crew. He's part of the group. He's a friendly face.
Yeah.
Which I would imagine, like, they're not going to hire somebody like outside. That all makes sense. That checks out. It's just I don't know. I don't think that I would have done that if I was in charge of Front Row, but it is what it is. So I'll give this a 4. I guess actually no, I'll take that back. I'll give this a 6 because I'm interested to see, if this sparks anything for Todd. I'm a little disappointed in Front Row, which I would have said 4. But what do you think? Over under 6 interest level?
I think I'll go lower just because. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what to expect, and I don't really. There's a lot more moves I think I'm more excited about than that. So
for sure. And we're landing on one right now. The 41 car, he's replacing Cole Custer. This is Ryan Preece. Chad Johnson is crew chief. This is a huge move. I think a lot of people are excited about Ryan Preece. He did. He had a year last year that I think any driver would love to have. Like, he got named as the taxi driver for Stewart Haas Racing. I think it originally started with him thinking he was going to take over the 10 car for Almirola. Then Almirola came back, announced that he was coming back for the 2023 season. Conversation started swirling. Well, we have Preece kind of waiting in the wings. Like, what are we going to do? Meanwhile, he's going out. He's winning races in the truck series. He's running Xfinity races. He's running Cup series races from time to time.
Modified during the week.
He's having his ball, right? Yeah. So good for him. Took a quote unquote year off from full-time racing essentially, but still got his, kicks and did well in the process. So kind of kept his name around, earned this spot as they kicked Cole back down to Xfinity and Preece. I think he's someone to watch for, man. I mean, I'm saying the obvious, right? I'm not breaking any news with that. When we go to these super speedways, he's been a guy who you got to keep your eye on. But I think now what I want to see for Preece is to see more in the mile and a half packages and those sorts of things. We know he's a factor when we get to the Daytonas and Talladegas of the world. What more can you give me? And you're going to be measuring yourself against how Cole Custer did last year, right? That's your. Do you agree, or do you think he's got like higher expectations to measure against?
I think just being better than Cole is a
Yeah.
start, right?
Yeah.
But I actually, you mentioned super speedways. If we're going to bring this back to like gambling for a second, I think I'm going to be looking at him at like short flats because he's so into the like he's been running modifieds for a long time, and what do modifieds run? Short flats.
Yeah, man.
So I think I'm going to be really. I think we can get some good numbers on him if he doesn't quite like flash early, and if we can catch him at like a New Hampshire or whatever else we might be able to catch him at, even like a Martinsville. I'm still kicking myself. One of the things that was Josh Berry last year at Martinsville. Like a lot of people caught him at like 40-1, and that was like the most like that made the most sense in the world. If I think we could repeat that this year with Ryan Preece, I think we can catch him. Now that we're putting on those sound waves, though, we're not going to get that number. But
Well, I think you're giving this podcast a little bit too much credit, but yeah, the that's a perfect, like, that's the reason why we did this episode, right? Was to make everyone aware of the changes, but also talk about the gambling implications of it. And there you go. Like Ryan Preece, you want to keep your eyes peeled. You want to check. I haven't dug into the numbers on his Cup Series career at those tracks, but because he has been, running those style tracks, somebody to watch for. And he's loose, man. He's coming back refreshed, I'd have to imagine, really excited. And yeah, really looking forward to see Priest driving that 41 car. So I know we're not alone there. A lot of people are anxious about that. And a lot of people are anxious about this one as well. The 42 new name. Okay. Petty Motorsports, Petty GMS Motorsports. They are changing their name to Legacy Motor Club. I like the club. What do you
yeah,
think? Are you a fan of the club?
yeah, I like it. This is it's something doing something different, right? It's not like they're just not falling into the same brand as everybody else. Like they're
Yeah.
and Legacy with like two champions as their co-owners, two 7-time champions as their co-owner. Like this is awesome. I love this.
Fantastic. So the 42 car, it was announced earlier in the year, but um, I guess in August, um, Noah Gregson going to be moving up to the Cup Series. So many people excited to see this happen. It's been a long time coming, it feels like. So he's driving. It's not a top tier team. Obviously, it's a, kind of off the beaten trail team. They have not been good. The 43 car hasn't been fantastic, and then they expanded to 42, the two-team shop once again last year with Ty Dillon. That didn't work out. But Noah Gregson, he's young and he's excited, and he's got Black Rifle Coffee Company, awesome die casts, and he's got Luke Lambert as his crew chief, which I'm very excited about. So I would give this a 9 out of 10. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think nine's a good number. I think I'm gonna say 8 just for the fact of like we've seen like the 43 have success with Eric Jones last year. And I think he was surpassed a lot of people's expectations, but the 42 is kind of nowhere to be found. So for the sake of like, yes, I'm interested to see how this pair of Gregson and Lambert can change the success of the 42. I think an 8-9 is a good number for that because it'll be fun to watch this. And Gregson, like unlike a lot of these, well, yeah, unlike Prius, really mainly I guess because Almendinger and who else am I getting? Who's coming up? Oh, Ty. Well, I guess never mind. It's not true. I was gonna say they've gotten their feet wet with this new car, whereas other drivers haven't. So the fact that Noah has that already coming in is a good step for him as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be fun to watch. I mean, maybe less than 9 out of 10 is a good choice because we do have to temper expectations a little bit. It's the 42 car, right?
Yeah.
You can't expect him to be coming in and changing things right away. But um, while we're on that topic, we haven't been talking about part-time drivers in this segment here, calling out all the changes for this year, but we have to talk about the other legacy driver, and it's Jimmy Johnson running a part-time schedule for them in the 84 car. So obviously the inverse of the 48, and that's going to be fun to watch. I don't have the full schedule yet. I don't think they even released that, but
Not yet.
um, how can you not be excited about that as a fan and as a gambler? It's Jimmy Johnson. He did his stint in IndyCar, didn't go all that well. So now he's coming home, he's buying in, back to his roots here and buying into this Legacy Motor Club brand. And he's going to try to promote that brand by putting the car out there in the top 10s, top 5s. So it'll be fun to watch for sure. Yeah, very excited about that. We'll move to the 47, Ricky Stenhouse. He just feels like he's never going anywhere. No matter how good or bad he is, he's just always going to be there, it feels like. And they'll just keep changing the crew chief. So it's Mike Kelly as the crew chief coming in this season. Yeah, I mean, as Brian Patty moves into the truck series, we've got Mike Kelly coming in. So actually, no, I'll go. I'm calling this like a 3 out of 10 excitement level.
Okay, I'm gonna go higher just because, similar to what I said earlier with Taylor or with Sam Moyer and his or Sam Mayer and his crew chief pairing, Mike Kelly and Stenhouse have won championships together. They won back-to-back Xfinity championships together. And Mike Kelly was also the car chief for Kurt's championship season 2004. So Mike Kelly's got a good background. And bringing two guys who've been successful before together, it's interesting to see what happens.
I mean, I'm always a fan of that. We talked about it, like you said, with the one car and the Xfinity. So Ricky, I mean, it just feels like he's got an endless leash.
Yeah.
And they're just too nice. They're like the Pittsburgh Steelers with coaches. Like just just let them go.
And they continue to have the worst paint schemes on Sundays. Just throwing that
really,
out there. I hate their.
I could argue against that. I don't know. Now I'm going to be looking for their paint schemes. I'm going to be sending you pictures every Sunday.
Oh, they're terrible. I don't know why they insist. Like they'll have a Reese's orange car and then a blue Kroger hood. Who came up with that? Like who thought that's a good idea? I hate it. I
that
hate
type of stuff. I agree with the Sunny D car, though. Come on, that's a sweet car.
it's okay. The NOS is the cool. The NOS is the only thing they got going for them.
Well, we'll move to the 48 car. We kind of touched on it a second ago. Greg Ives is moving away from crew chief role overall, and Alex Bowman will have a new crew chief. It's Blake Harris. So I'm going to say this is a 7 for me because Alex Bowman is an enigma. I know he signed on. Let's see, he signed a 2-year contract. Oh no, this is a contract year. Sorry.
This is it. Yeah.
So
We're gonna
yeah,
touch on this in a second, but yeah.
Yeah, this is a contract season. That's right. So, and Ally is signed on through 2023. So this is a huge year for Alex Bowman. And like I said, he's a tough one to nail down. So this is a 7 out of 10 with this new crew chief coming in for me. You going over under?
I'm going over only because I think they're bringing in this crew chief to say like, this is it. Like, this is your year to prove it. We're going to bring in a guy who just led Michael McDowell to a career year. He was also Blake Harris was also the car chief for Martin Truex Jr.'s championship with Furniture Row in 2017. So you're bringing in a guy that is only going to elevate the program and say, Alex, you want a new contract at the end of the season. We're giving you all the tools you need to do it. So I'm going higher on this one.
That's a good reason to go higher. I can't argue that. And you're bringing the knowledge with the crew chiefs tonight. I really appreciate that.
Deep dive.
Hey, that's the type of stuff that we need, man. The 54 card JGR, highly documented, tons of conversation already. It's Ty Gibbs. They're moving away from the 18 number and they're throwing the 54 on the side of his car. Ty Gibbs got some races in last year when Kurt went out. He was driving the 45 and the 23 car last year. And he's got Chris Gale as his crew chief. I'm excited for Ty Gibbs. So much hype around him. Won the championship last year. Obviously, that huge tragedy that happened the night after he won kind of changes your perspective of this kid a little bit, whereas everyone was like super aggressive towards him and hating on him. Now, I think it kind of resets people's fandom a little bit and gives you a pause. So I'm really excited to see Ty perform in the Cup Series. It's not a fill-in role anymore. This is his ride. No more drama around the contracts of Kyle Busch or who's he replacing, etc. Let's do it. 54 car. I'm 9 out of 10 for Ty.
Yeah, I think that's a good number. I'm gonna say equal. I also like the fact, like at first I didn't like the fact that they didn't give him the 18, but then the more I sat on it, I was like, I like that. Like 18 was kind of like Kyle Busch's legacy. The 54 is kind of already kind of in Ty's legacy coming up through the ranks. So let him keep that legacy of that 54 and let that live on. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. I always think about with the numbers, it's just sidetracked, but I always think about Dale Jr. When he went from the 8 to the 88, he talked about how he cared a lot about the people who got tattoos of his number. All they had to do was just add a number 8. Like, so for Kyle, they just got to get the 1 removed and they're good. It won't be too bad. You're not taking the whole damn thing off. For fans of Ty, if you've got a tat already, man, you just stick around, stick with the 54. So,
Yeah.
that always, I get a kick out of that. All right, we're gonna move to the 78. It's BJ McLeod driving that, but Josh Bilicki will jump in a little bit, and David Ingram is the crew chief for this ride. It looks like it's kind of a double driver situation here. I'm gonna go 1 out of 10.
Yeah, lower, I guess.
Lower than a 1. All right, and that is it for the Cup Series. Before we get into the, we're not going to get into like the part-time rides other than Jimmy, but any other comments around the Cup Series? Oh, I think I missed one. I don't know how I missed them, but Ty Dillon is moving from Petty GMS to the number 77 Spire Motorsports car. I'm a 7 out of 10 just because we get to bet on Ty Dillon at super speedways, man. I'm a broken record with that. You guys make fun of me all the time, but yeah, I think the Cup Series is in a better place with Ty Dillon in it. So higher, lower than a 7.
I'm gonna go lower, but hey, to your point, like Spire showed a little bit of something, something at the super speedways last year with Corey.
Yeah, they did.
So
They did.
maybe I'll be the one wrong on this one. Maybe the 7 is justified.
Well, I'm going to be throwing top 10 to start the year on Ty. He's kick ass at Daytona, so it won't be long for anyone listening to this podcast to hear me talking about Ty. So that is it. All right, it was a deep dive. I know we're deep into this episode. This is one of our longest episodes ever, and it's like I said, to reiterate, calling out all the changes so you're aware of everything, and we really did go into everything. So, Chris, I appreciate you doing that. Now, let's pull this down here, and we're gonna look ahead to next year's silly season, because silly season doesn't stop, man. Even when they wave the green flag at the Clash or Daytona, starts the 2023 season, you and I are already going to be scheming about who's filling in these cars next year. So let me start this segment, and we won't go too long into this because we're deep into this episode already. But just today, or was it yesterday, Kevin Harvick announces that this is his last year. So makes me so thankful we didn't do this last week. We get to talk about this. Kevin Harvick out of the 4-car, Stewart-Haas Racing, once again, looking for another driver. So immediately you think, all right, well, does Cole get boosted back up there? Who in the Ford camp is legit? I've got my answer. It might be the same as yours, but as the guest, I'm going to let you go first. What are your thoughts on Harvick moving away, and who fills that spot next year in silly season?
So I guess to start with the thoughts about it, you're 100% right. I'm so glad we didn't record yesterday. We were both texting each other like, "Holy crap, that just happened." It's not all that surprising though. I'm waiting for them to release the news that he's gonna come into like a announcer role of some sort, because he's kind of dabbled in that. He's also really influential in not Brexton. What's his son's name?
Keelan,
Yes. In Keelan's career, as Keelan comes up through the ranks with go-kart racing and all that. So I wouldn't say it's all that surprising to see that he's hanging it up. He also bought into the Cars ownership with Dale Jr. I don't know if you saw that. It's like him, Justin Marks, somebody else.
One of the Burtons, Jeff Burton.
Yeah, I think you're right. So he's still getting his his fill. Who's going to take over for him? So
before you say that, I just want to say I'm disappointed that he's stepping away. I think that I know he's older, but I feel like Harvick has 1, 2, maybe even 3 more years left in him. But so I'm upset that he's hanging it up. But with that being said, who do you think?
I think we probably have the same guy.
Was he a draft pick of mine on your show?
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
Zane Smith.
That's right.
I think makes the most logical sense here. People might question, is the move from truck to Cup too much, but I really don't think so. I mean, Zane has shown like a lot of maturity. He handled that championship with like pure class. Raced the hell out of that last race. Yep. If you bet anything other than Zane, you were kicking yourself the entire night, because that was the fastest truck I think I've ever seen. I just think that makes the most sense. He seems like the most logical fit, if not for Custer coming back up. I don't think that's actually going to happen, but that's kind of what I think. I'm sure you agree.
I agree. I think Zane's the pick. He's marketable. He's a champion in a lower series. Like you said all the right things. He's got the face for it, right? Like, he's a sponsor's dream. And to skip Xfinity makes me a little nervous. We saw it with Todd Gilliland, I believe. Like, he went straight from trucks to the show and hasn't really been having the great start to his career, but he's also in much lesser equipment. So I think this is kind of like a dream scenario for a lot of teams. Like, he's kind of, if that were to happen, that would be a guinea pig situation, because you're saying like, all right, I'm taking a truck driver who has proven skipping, and I'm putting him in a real deal ride, sink or swim, go for it. It's not a prove yourself in a 38 car. It's, here you go. Here are the keys to a kick-ass car. So the other part of this argument is, who else does Ford have? Riley Hurst? The fuck out of here. Like, that's nothing. Sorry to Riley Hurst, but like, come on, man. Like, you're not driving the 4 car. You can't possibly think that this news was good for you today. And then you get into the Haley Deegan factor. She's not ready for Cup.
Yeah.
So, and I know that there's a connection between Deegan and Harvick in some way, as far as like mentor or that sort of thing, connecting at the track. But if you're saying, all right, the knocks on that would be, well, she's going directly from truck to Cup. And if you're saying that's what Zane's doing, Zane has a much better resume than that. So I feel like Zane is their best prospect in the Ford camp. To me, it's easy peasy, man. There's no doubt that he's got to be driving for Stewart-Haas 4 car. But
the only other scenario that stand out there, and this will probably be something that we're about to talk about as well as kind of other predictions, but another reference from Jordan Bianchi with The Athletic. He made a list of the guys that he believes, because this stuff isn't always easy to find like other sports. Contracts are kind of like kept secret in NASCAR. But from what Jordan believes, the guys that are in their contract years this year are Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, Denny Hamlin, not Kevin Harvick, cross that one out, Martin Truex Jr., and Alex Bowman. So there is the possibility that, let's just throw out the fact, what if Alex Bowman doesn't have the year that Hendrick wants him to have? Does Alex get cut from Hendrick, but maybe still land with Stewart-Haas? Something like that,
I could see that. I mean, it would be a manufacturer shift. So at that point, like, maybe he could land anywhere. He could land at JGR too. I think so. So let's go that route, because I don't think they're going to resign him. I'm going to make that prediction, and I'm going to say that Noah Gregson's going to fill in. I think, I don't know what his contract is like at Legacy, but I can't imagine that he signed more than like a 2-year deal. So I think you could probably get out of it, and then you move up. You use Legacy as kind of a building block for Hendrick.
Right.
And you bring up Josh Berry, or you bring up somebody else from JRM. It just becomes a natural stepping stone. I also think that Eric Jones has proven himself.
That was about to be one of the ones I was going to say. Yep.
Yeah. So let's pretend you're Rick Hendrick. You're cutting Bowman, kicking him to the side. I'm sure he'll land on his feet. Plenty of open rides like you just named. JGR is like going to be wide open. So who do you hire? You would go Jones first because he's proven?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And
I
people
think that's the
forget,
right choice.
yeah, and we talked about it on my offseason podcast with the Dynasty Draft, but like Eric Jones is not as old as you think he is. He's 26 years old. Like, I think he's a year or two older than Noah, I think. That's maybe it's not right. He's a year or two older than somebody else who's like a rookie. I'm drawing a blank on who it is. But anyways, the point of the story is Eric Jones is not as old as people think he is, and he's been around for a while. He's already been at a top ride, got knocked down, is slowly building his way back up. I think I've referenced it a million times, but I came across that Reddit thread where Dale Jr. did AMA, and somebody asked Dale Jr. if you were to go to Cup and you could start a team of 4 cars, who would be the drivers you could pick if contracts weren't in play? And his 4 drivers were it was like Tyler Reddick, Josh Berry. I'm drawing a blank on the third one, but the last one was Eric Jones.
Noah, did you say Noah?
I don't think it was Noah.
Maybe he left Noah out. You don't have to pull it up. He might have notably left Noah out, and I think that might have made some waves. But
yeah,
I mean, Jones, that Jones boy, it makes sense. Where I was going to go with it was I think that's the right choice. I think Noah is the more marketable or like sexy choice, like the big splash, because he's got the fan base. Jones fans are there, but they're not like there's not as many as Noah Gragson fans, and that speaks. I don't know what the sponsorship situation is, but obviously Black Rifle loves Noah. That has to mean something, as we know, for all these drivers. Sponsorship money talks, so that could steer him into that ride. But I go back to what I said. I agree with your choice. I think Jones would deserve that spot if deserve plays a factor in it, or if that even exists. It's just I think it'd be a lot tougher than that for them to make.
William Byron was the other driver, by the way. That
Willie B. Okay.
Yeah.
So you named a few other big holes there. I mean, I think we can expect Truex to probably follow Harvick into the sunset here this year. I think he was planning on retiring this year. Like I think he wanted out, and they let him stay around, or they asked him to stay around. That was my theory, anyway. So let's pretend that he's out, and actually, let's nip the Hamlin thing in the bud. They have to resign Denny Hamlin, right? Don't you think? Like they can't let that go.
Let's table that for a second. Let's finish.
All right. All right. I was gonna say let's sure that up and let's go to the 19. But
no,
let's go to 19. Let's do it.
Yeah. So I guess you were hinting at the fact of Truex leaving. Obviously, who's going to replace him? I think John Hunter, obviously, is a candidate. Me personally, with some bias, hopes that maybe Reddick could, if he's not signed like super long term. Do they just call him up?
Say Reddick?
Yeah.
Wait a second. You think that 2311?
I don't think. No, I don't. But I'm saying from a fan standpoint, he made this lateral move, right? So if I want him to move up, that would be the seat that I kind of hoped he was going to get, other than 2011.
Gotcha. Well, so here we go. Right, let's go back to that Reddick conversation. If that's the case, you shot yourself in the foot, dude. Like you could have stuck around, being a team player on the 8 car, and then you got the seat that you wanted. You can't. First of all, we can't treat 2311 as if there's some sort of minor league for feeding into JGR. They are trying to be their own deal. Just because they have that affiliation doesn't mean that he's going to move up, slide him up. So that's where I was jumping down your throat there. But if Reddick, man, if that were to happen, so I guess where you're going with that is Reddick moves into the 19, Hamlin slides into the 45 to drive for himself, and then
except it wouldn't be the 45, it'd be the 11 because they're 2311.
So you think he would get his number?
It's literally the name of the team. You've got to think, right? At some point, they're going to want that number to come with them. FedEx is all of a sudden talking about not coming back. A year ago, would we have really sat here and said, "Oh, Kyle Busch is leaving"? No doubt, Kyle Busch is leaving, right? I
I mean,
mean,
it's a good point.
I'm just
I
planting
like
some
the theory.
seeds.
I like the theory. If that were to happen, Tyler Reddick, man, I mean, that's a wild career trajectory,
Yeah, yeah.
or career resume, I guess. But I guess you're not really ruffling feathers if the owner gets to drive for his own car. When is Bubba's contract up? Do you know?
I
Because
I think he just signed an extension, if I'm not
he
mistaken.
did.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I looked
Well,
this up earlier. Yeah, so on actually, I guess literally like a month ago in December, it was announced that he signed a multi-year extension.
okay. So he's there. Because I was thinking at some point they're going to have to cut ties with him if he doesn't perform like now.
Yeah.
But all right. So I think there's a world in which Denny Hamlin does drive the 11 car for 2311 racing next year. And I guess if that would have to result in Tyler moving to JGR. So I see it. I'm not baffled by it. I think that does exist. If it was up to me, if I was Joe Gibbs, I would sign Denny for 2 more years. Fill the 19 car with John Hunter, and then in 2 years, take Reddick. Like do the swap. You know what I mean? Just
That's fair. Yeah.
say to Denny, hey, I need you. I need to win a championship with you, man. You've been here forever. No championships. I need to win a championship. You're my guy. Because if you don't have him, then your roster is looking like what? Christopher Bell. So let's say that swap happens now. Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, John Hunter, and who am I missing?
Ty
Ty
Gibbs.
Gibbs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like hell of a young situation, but you can't let the kids run the daycare, man. You need somebody there to be like, not as a, not even trying to joke, but like as a stable human being, like to lean on. So that's where I'm like, no way they can let that happen. But there's a world. I mean, we've seen it. This is
Your
crazy.
your idea of like 2 years from now makes more sense than mine, but we had to like put some skepticism out there, right? Like the Hamlin's
Got
not
to
going to
take
come back.
swings. Got to take swings. Yeah. So did we touch on all the major rides that would be open, or you ripped off a bunch earlier? Did we miss any to speculate on?
I don't think I have anything else written down. I got one more like kind of off-season thing to talk about for 2024, but
Yeah.
if we're done with all, make sure I guess we're done with all the cars first. I think we are though.
I think we talked about anybody who we would possibly see in the Cup Series as far as we see it right now, January 12th, 2023.
Well, and you hinted at so like all right, you said Gregson to take over for Bowman, which would bring potentially like Barry or another name that I know you like, Carson Hocevar is a
Oh,
Chevy
yeah.
driver, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the more logical move would be for him to go to Xfinity first, but there already has been talks about them wanting to keep him long term and potentially become a Cup team too. I've heard that thrown around for who he
Who?
drives for now. I'm trying to think of the name of the team he drives for now. Hocevar.
Oh. Sorry. Yeah, let me, I don't know why it's lost on me.
Escaping me too.
Uh,
Nice.
Bad radio. Yeah. Nice. So they're trying to make a cup bid. You're saying they're trying to get a charter.
There was little sprinkling of that they were looking into a charter similar to like Dale Jr. has been. I don't know if anything's going to come to fruition, but there's apparently some report out there that if they were to get a Cup charter, they would bring Husvar with them to Cup.
I mean, he's their team.
Yeah.
Like if they don't have him, they got nothing. If I'm Carson, I'm looking. So now we're going like 6 ways to Kevin Bacon here, but if I'm Carson, I'm hoping that Bowman doesn't get re-signed. Jones / Gregson move over to the 48. Spot opens up on Legacy. One of the JRM drivers moves into there, and I sign with JRM, and then JRM gets a charter in a future season. And then now you've got Carson Hocevar as your driver of the future for JRM in the Cup Series. That is wild, but not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I
But
think
it's
it's
fun
very
to speculate.
realistic. Yeah, and even if it's not with the ending of JRM getting a charter, if he's landing at JRM, it's a good pipeline to get to the Cup
Exactly.
level.
He's
So
in the minor leagues, for their roster. So, um, yeah, that's the fun part. That's why we like.
yeah,
That's the type of stuff like we could send to each other. For
yep,
anyone who's listening to this, like, Chris is my silly season guy. That's why this is fun to me. And this more recent silly seasons of the past have been more crazy. So we're not wearing a tinfoil hat anymore. We're really kind of predicting realistic things, even though it sounds crazy. So,
yep.
um, anything else to add for 2024 before we wrap it
So
up here?
it's not necessarily NASCAR related, but it is also. But just today, I don't know if you saw this, about an hour before we started recording, Kyle Larson confirms to be in the Indy
Indy
500 in
500.
2024. How cool is that?
Very cool. So, did he confirm that he's got a ride, or he's like looking into it?
It's confirmed. He posted his own video announcing it. So
So he's running the double?
I guess so, right? I mean, I don't think he's not going to take a break from Cup, so I would assume.
That So who was the last guy to run the double? Was it Kurt a few
Kurt,
years ago?
yeah,
That was so fun to follow, and I am pumped. Like when I saw that he was looking into it, I was like, oh, like I guess he's trying to look for somebody to take him on. I didn't realize he had a confirmed ride. That is going to be awesome. I love because it just brings so much. First of all, it brings the two. Excuse me. Brings the two sports together that day. Like even though it's the greatest day in motorsports, like we say it, to have that thread connecting Indy and NASCAR on that day is just awesome. So love that that's happening, and kind of getting your name out there, and you're getting NASCAR kind of like in there
yeah.
when it's their Super Bowl, right? So all of those eyes that are tuning in to watch that race are going to hear about Kyle Larson, and he's a Cup champion in the NASCAR, and he's running the Coke 600 later that night. Can't go wrong. So good on him.
So the official news article actually says his entry is going to be co-owned by Hendrick and carry the title sponsor of HendrickCars.com, and the manufacturer or team is going to be Arrow McLaren. Is who he's driving for.
Wow, that's interesting. So that's 2024. Man, a lot to
2024.
look forward to already, and it's not even in the season yet. That's cool stuff. I'm
Yeah,
excited for that already. Really awesome that I mean, just talk about a guy who loves racing. Like that's Kyle Larson. He
yeah,
doesn't matter what it is. If it has a wheel, he's driving it. So, very cool. Be a good representation. He's a perfect driver to have representing NASCAR in that race. So,
100%.
see how he does compared to the other doubles, Tony and Kurt. I don't remember people before that, but can't be too many.
No, and he's on the 5th. I'm pretty sure that's trying to complete the feat. So
Kurt did pretty damn good if I remember, but I think he was running well in the 600 and got wrecked late maybe or something. But
yeah,
he put up a good showing and then kind of lost it towards the end. But I could see Kyle really doing some damage.
yeah.
So.
And you gotta think that Jimmy's giving him some pointers too. Like, hey, here's what I learned.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
For sure. Or if you're Kyle, do you even want that? Thanks, pal. I'll figure it out. Well, Chris, I appreciate it. We've been going long here. I'm taking up a large amount of time here on your Thursday night. Any other thoughts for 2023, 2024, or NASCAR in general right now?
2.5 hours in, I'm a little brain dead.
Yeah,
at this point,
agreed.
I'm just ready to get some odds posted. Let's get some betting going on the Clash, the 500. Let's just get some stuff. Get back to it. Get back to the swing of things, and get back to our normally scheduled programming on Sundays.
That's right. Need need something fun to look at when you wake up. That's how I live my life. Wake up, look at the odds, just kind of noodle on things and go about your day. But
Have you placed a
little smart.
500 bet yet?
Yeah,
Future?
it's becoming my so when I get some free bets around
Okay,
the
yeah.
bowl season, it's my like New Year's Eve tradition. I place a free bet on Ryan Blaney. So I took him 12-1, and I also took Chris Buescher plus 4,000.
Okay.
And I mentioned how I took Allmendinger championship bet. I don't think I took him to win the 500 yet, but I'll probably do that too. But yeah, so to win the 500, it was Buescher and Blaney
Blaney.
so far. How
I've
about you?
got I got Kyle Busch at 25-1 because that number just seems ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got Eric Jones at 50-1.
Oh, 50-1. I'm gonna have to hit that as soon as we get off here.
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
If you can still find
that's
it, it's
interesting.
come down since.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I know in where you're at, our books are a little bit different, but I'll definitely be giving him a look. Now you're getting the juices flowing, man. This is going to be fun pretty soon here. So, Chris, I appreciate you joining me. First time on the show here on the YouTube side as well. So sticking around. It's just we love talking silly season, and obviously 2.5 hours proves that. So to hang with me that long, I'm in your debt. So appreciate that, and looking forward to this season, man.
Absolutely. And it's an honor, honestly. I love being on your show. It's I bring it up every time, and this is what got me started doing this in the first place, was coming on your show just as a fan. So it's cool to still have this now, actually, like a friendship, like we've actually met
Yeah,
in person, and we
yeah,
text. We're at a text level now. Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, this is awesome. I love coming on. I could have went another 30 minutes talking silly season, make this 3 hours, make it a Rory episode. Um,
The Rory
but
warning.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And good luck with the flag hunting pod, getting going, trying to, bounce back from Colin last week on the golf side. And we'll be looking forward to any preseason stuff you have coming into the NASCAR season. So thank you, Chris. And thanks to anyone listening and watching. Appreciate it. Remember, like I said, keep your ear to the ground here. We're going to be releasing a season bet win total episode some point in the next month or so, getting ready for the 500. So remember, drive fast, take chances, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.